OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
Right, a very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTB AM. It's Ger Eoin, Eoin Sheahan with you all the way through until 10 this morning. We'd love to hear from you wherever you are in the world. Get in touch, drop a comment in the YouTube channel, tweet us at Off The Ball, or indeed use the hashtag OTBAM, and we will talk to you happily about today's sport. And there is plenty to get our teeth stuck into. It's a truth universally acknowledged that on the Thursday of Masters Week, Owen, this is the golfers' world and we just live in it.
It's true. The golfers' world that they reluctantly allow us to live in, I think, is probably a more accurate way of us to put it, I think, because they, tiptoe around our discourse around golf and say, you know nothing about golf because you don't watch the Honda Open,
the Zozo,
the Zozo Championship, or
Waste Management.
You don't have push notifications for the FedEx Cup standings, and quite frankly, who would have push notifications set up for the FedEx Cup when you can actually just watch the final weekend of the FedEx Cup and just be done with it? Hop on the bandwagon here and there. It is a sport that takes too long to watch every single week. Just dip in and out of it for your 6-7 weekends of the year, maybe 8 weekends on a Ryder Cup year, and be done with it. That's all you need. Spend the rest of your time swinging the club.
Yeah.
It'll be better use of your time. We will, I guess, get into the habit of, getting back into using golf terminology over the next little while. The one piece of golf terminology that's definitely popped up a lot in recent times, I find, is not referring to a golf course as a golf course, but as a track. If you know your golf, you have to refer to the golf course as the track, not as the golf course, because you know your golf. You set yourself apart from the crowd if you call it a track. So that's the first step for 2020 golf fan.
Where do you stand on rugby pitches being paddocks?
Oh, never even flirted with my lexicon, thankfully, and plenty of bad things have done that very thing, but not paddocks. Like, what is this, the 1970s?
Oh, it's just a out on the paddock. It's an Antipodean phraseology. Sure, look, if some people say different things from us, some people. I'm looking at the Examiner this morning, and there's a new international team who are in action tonight in a European playoff final that we would have been playing in. It's a team called North Ireland. Who are North Ireland? North Ireland aiming to create history, reads the headline. Ian Barraclough has urged his North players to go out and make history in tonight's Euro 2020 qualifying playoff final against Slovakia. The North have the chance to build on the success of 5 years ago, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, wow, North Ireland, and brand new team playing international football. Should we get behind them? They have Ireland in the name. It seems like the type of thing that we could certainly, we'll claim anybody, like Jack Grealish. We'll claim anybody, but this team we're not claiming.
No, not according to that phrase. Like the North, are they doing it for Ned Stark, I wonder, and doing it for everybody north of the wall as well? Like, this is like, I don't know. This is going to be one of these envious moments if they go ahead and actually qualify, or maybe more than envy, it'll be kind of more regret that people haven't managed to get their houses in order that we can have an All-Ireland team by this stage, and we'd probably be sitting qualified for Euro 2020 right now if that was the reality of the situation.
Are we more or less likely to get an All-Ireland team when we don't recognise the fact that they exist and we call them the North and North Ireland? Serious question. Serious question.
Oh, it's a serious question.
Yeah.
Well, obviously less likely.
Why?
Because you're not respecting their... Like, they have an identity, and if you're not respecting that identity as a team and calling them their correct team, then how can you get their respect in an overall sense?
But you would suspect the people who want a 32-county team would want to be getting to that point. So this is actually counterproductive and counter. It's not counterintuitive. It's totally intuitive, but it's completely counterproductive.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how many people would actually be picking up the Irish Examiner this morning and getting offended by that phraseology of calling it North Ireland. There probably would be a good few people who would be.
But anybody who actually wants a 32-county team must see that this is stupid, right?
But then there's like the alternative of what team do you support? It
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what team you support, right? But I can recognise that the team of Northern Ireland exists. They have a song. They have a long and storied tradition. Like, it exists, it's a real thing. Denying its existence seems idiotic to me. How are you going to convince that team to give up being that team and join a new team if you're like, no, you don't even exist? You're pissant little North Ireland. What?
Well, obviously that's not going to work. Like, they were, I mean, that's why I thought your question was like a bit of a rhetorical question, to be honest. There is no positive way of actually disrespecting what they hold important, what anybody holds important, and thinking, yeah, let's hop on the same side of things now. Like, I mean, it's not going to be anything that happens in the near future. Whenever this conversation comes up, there's always the people who are like, stop talking about this because it just ain't going to happen. But sometimes we can't help ourselves to just actually dream about what might happen if everybody in this island came together for the positive force of football. Well, it seems like a fairly simple thing sometimes, but it's really not.
Yeah, we're going to talk hockey a little bit later on. We're going to talk swimming a little bit later on as well. So plenty for us to get our teeth stuck into. The other big story that broke overnight was that there is a doubt about Mickey Harte's future as the manager of Tyrone. So Gaelic World are reporting that Harte wants a 1-year deal, but the Tyrone County Board wants somebody for a 3-year deal. And this might be a suitable way for everybody for the whole thing to end. Is this the county board essentially saying, we don't want you anymore?
It's going to be hard to say we don't want you anymore to Mickey Harte, and maybe this is a convenient way for it to end, where he's not getting pushed out the door and he's not getting kept on. It's just by default he doesn't get kept on. That could be how this story gets painted, and maybe everybody comes out of that in a fairly good way. Maybe Mickey Harte is thinking to himself that the clock is ticking on his own inter-county management career, or maybe he's a little bit sick of it. If he wanted just a 1-year term and didn't feel that he wanted a 3-year term, it does suggest to me that there is a manager there who does see the end in sight and doesn't feel that he's going to have the hunger for it maybe in a year's time. So if the Tyrone County Board are reading a lot into that, then you can see why they'd make that decision, that it's like, no, you're here for the long haul or you're not here at all. And it's convenient then to be able to get a new man in. I do think there is value in what Mickey Harte is asking for a 1-year term, because of the fact that this was supposed to be the end of his term this year, and he will feel that he got a bit of a raw deal this year. Everybody will feel they got a bit of a raw deal this year, the way everything has gone. So he might have felt that just one more year to correct the end of my 3-year term, that's all I ask for. And I guess I can put a little bit of weight in that. I think that that's a fairly valid thing to ask for. But then at the same time, you can see why the Tyrone County Board wants somebody with a bit of a long-term vision rather than kind of a one-and-done year next year, given the age profile of certain areas of their team and given the excitement around that team.
Yeah, so this story was broken last night by Niall Gartland from the Ulster Herald, and he's got a good bit of detail in it about what actually happened, which would make you believe that there's essentially a truth to it. No comment yet, of course, from the Tyrone County Board or from Mickey Harte, so we will wait and see exactly how that plays out. In one of the papers it says Peter Canavan has turned down or has said that he wouldn't be interested in getting involved because of his family connections to the team. Obviously his son is going to be the next Tyrone superstar, or one of the next bunch of Tyrone superstars. I didn't realise his daughter had married Peter Harte as well. So Christmas dinner when you had to drop Peter Harte for the All-Ireland final a couple of months previous, not the most crack, I would say.
No, and you can see as well why maybe Peter Canavan doesn't want to manage his son as well. Like, that's probably a little bit easier than managing your son-in-law, I'd imagine, but like it's a tricky one for anybody in that place. We've seen managers manage their sons and manage close relatives plenty of times down through the years. It doesn't tend to lead to too many tough situations. Peter Harte is still one of the leaders in that team. It's not going to be a situation where he's going to get dropped anytime soon, but everybody's career comes to an end, and whoever the manager is that's there to tell him to sit on the bench for the first time, perhaps. I'm not sure does Peter Canavan want to be that guy. He's the first name that came to mind, though, and if he's immediately removing himself from the situation, then it blows this whole thing wide open in terms of who could be the successor to Harte.
Malachy O'Rourke, Ryan McMenamin and McGinley, who we had on the show yesterday, probably a little bit early in McMenamin and McGinley's career. Malachy O'Rourke?
It's a decent shout, actually. Like, I mean, I thought he probably walked away from the Monaghan job a little bit too early. I thought that there was still a little bit of work to do, and he was a little bit unlucky actually at the end of his phase there. But I guess sometimes the Ulster Championship just throws you up a lack of luck sometimes. He was a good manager. He's managed to make a team overachieve, I feel anyway, or certainly make a county overachieve, relative to their population and all that. With the players they had, probably not an overachievement to have got to an All-Ireland semi-final, considering their generational talents. But Tyrone,
they're not gone outside, are they? They would
that's
see
the
it.
thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. But what they can learn from someone like Malachy O'Rourke is, how do we get a manager who can absolutely maximise everything we have got? And that is the one thing Tyrone maybe haven't been doing recently, because they have had exceptionally good underage teams. And realistically, they haven't laid a glove on a team like Dublin over the last couple of years. And that's been a real disappointment, considering they feel that they could run every other team in the country close, and have run every other team in the country close. But that All-Ireland final in 2018, that was a real disappointment from Tyrone's perspective. And I know a lot of the players were disappointed with how they performed on that day. But
I didn't realise Malachy O'Rourke has Errigal Kieran connections, as in. So he playing career with Derry Lynn in Fermanagh, obviously has long been associated more as a Fermanagh person whenever people have been talking about it. But there's enough Errigal there, I think. Maybe he's actually from Errigal, is he? Would that be enough? I mean, that club has been relatively successful for Tyrone football before.
Yeah, and I also think as well, this idea of not going outside, I can see why it happens and all that, because people are dyed in the wool when it comes to the GEA, but maybe with certain cases you should be making an exception for that sort of thing. Like there are certain times when a managerial candidate and his candidacy is a little bit overwhelming for you to try and just say, sure, you're from Fermanagh and you've managed Monaghan before, we can't even consider you. I think that might be a little bit rash on Tyrone's part. Like, he's got the credentials to do a really good job with a team like Tyrone.
Fergal Logan was the manager of the successful under-21 team in the past, and obviously a mainstay of the team in the late 80s, early 90s, played in 95 in that All-Ireland final. He is the favourite at the moment. It looks like, I don't know, maybe he's a stalking horse, maybe he's actually going to get it as well. But it's the best job to get at the moment in inter-county football, right?
Well, yeah, no, it is. Like, the excitement that forward line brings next year, if everybody stays fit, is unparalleled. And like, when you say exciting, I guess the excitement comes from knowing that you can make a big step forward with this team next year, and that is challenging for an All-Ireland. I don't think any other team is really ripe for that sort of step forward. I think the Mayo job, and James Horan's in there, I think he's got an extremely exciting 2021 ahead of him as well. So Mayo and Tyrone really are the two jobs, in my opinion, that look really exciting for the future. Like, Padraig Joyce has had a massive year with Galway this year, so I wouldn't put them in that bracket, because I think they've actually, on the down low, made that big step forward, even if we're not going to see it this weekend. Like, that's the sort of improvement you hope to see from Tyrone next year, the sort of things that we saw from Galway in the National League earlier this year. And like, in fairness, that is the evidence of why they need to change managers, what they've seen, what a county like Galway have done under new management like Padraig Joyce this year, where if you do change up your style of play and your mentality a little bit, the results can be pretty instantaneous if you have the talents to do it. Like, that's the thing with Galway this year. Like, you could have said that it might take a little bit of time for them to actually start beating teams regularly in Division 1 and challenge for a Division 1 title if they're changing their style of play. And before lockdown, they were the best team in the country on form. Like, that is the sort of instant hit you can get as Tyrone manager if you come in with a positive style of play. And that's not something that they've overly achieved under Mickey Harte. But again, I'm really reluctant to be overly critical of him, given what he's achieved, and given how they haven't been a million miles away. Like, they did end up making that All-Ireland final a couple of years ago.
But they weren't close to winning it. That's the issue. So 7:44 this morning. We'd love to hear from you. Should Mickey Harte stay? Should he go? Is this the time for him to reap the benefits of having stuck it out so much, and all these superstar players coming to the fore at the moment? Here's what's coming up on the show. Shane Ryan, our swimmer, is going to talk to us from Budapest, where he is setting Irish records in a very interesting kind of World Series type event. We'll talk around 8:10 about that. We'll do a deep dive on the Davy versus Lohan rivalry, which will be setting our TVs ablaze at the weekend at 8:20. Lockdown TV guide from Owen at 8:45. Nikki Daly, who is of course a member of the hockey team, but also has a career in motorsport. Simultaneous to that, we'll talk to her at 9 o'clock this morning. 9:15 Masters preview with Joe Molloy, and we'll play it with Paul McShane, was on last night. Always interesting to hear from Paul McShane. He's got a very different take on football generally, so he'll come your way around about 9:30 this morning. Tweet us this morning, use the hashtag OTBAM at 7:45 rather. Not to panic you all, it's 7:45. You're not late for work. Phil's here. Phil, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Ger?
What's going on?
Well, we're going to start with Ireland's game against England at Wembley. It's only a friendly, but it is Ireland and England, and hopefully a few words from Katie Taylor at the team hotel yesterday will do the trick. Katie Taylor, a former Irish international herself, 11 caps, 2 goals, and goals is one thing that this Irish team is struggling with at the moment. And obviously Katie Taylor has her own Wembley date this Saturday against Miriam Gutierrez. But tonight it's about the boys in green, the small matter of that friendly against England. It's one of 3 games for Stephen Kenny's side in the space of 6 days. Obviously then have Nations League games against Wales and Bulgaria to follow. No Aaron Connolly, no Callum Robinson. We obviously know as well that Enda Stevens is injured, so Stephen Kenny's going to be forced to change things at the back. The last 5 meetings between the two countries have ended in draws, so you actually have to go back to Euro 88, Ray Houghton's goal for the last time there was a winner when Ireland played England. 1985 was the last time England beat us. That was a 2-1 friendly at Wembley. Tonight's game kicks off at 8 o'clock. Bit of playoff action as well before that at 7:45, and we'll look on jealously as Northern Ireland take on Slovakia at Windsor Park in their Euro 2020 playoff final. 1,000 fans as well will be allowed inside that game at Windsor Park, and then Scotland are in Belgrade for their playoff final against Serbia. It's day 1 of the Masters. Shane Lowry, Rory McIlroy, Graham McDowell and James Sugrue all in the field at Augusta for the final major of the year, which is usually the first. It's usually held in April, but things are different this year. We know Shane Lowry will play alongside defending champion Tiger Woods. They're going to tee off just before 1 o'clock. McDowell gets his opening round underway at 1:15. Rory McIlroy, his latest attempt to win a first green jacket and complete that career Grand Slam, begins at 5 o'clock. Amateur James Sugrue goes out just after that, about 5:10. He's in a group that includes 2-time champion Jose Maria Olazabal. Mickey Harte's future as Tyrone manager, as you've just been discussing, very much up in the air, with reports that a request for a 1-year extension has been turned down. It's believed Tyrone GAA chiefs are keen on interested candidates applying for a 3-year term. Cork manager Ronan McCarthy says they're waiting for permission to play Mark Keane in next week's Munster Senior Football final. Keane contracted to AFL side Collingwood, and he's due to return to Melbourne in early December. And finally, today's racing at Clonmel does go ahead at 12:15. There was an early morning inspection and it has passed. Obviously a lot of rain overnight, but it's all good to go at Clonmel.
Phil, good stuff. Thanks for that. OTBAM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Gary Breen is with us. Gary, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What's your level of anxiety about what might happen with Ireland against this England team tonight?
Oh, listen, I understand in terms of the problems we're having in terms of trying to get our best team out. I know that the strength and depth that England have, regardless of what team they select. So, yeah, it is a worry. But to be perfectly honest, just want to see the bigger picture in terms of Stephen Kenny really stamping his authority on the squad, the philosophy. I know it's been a difficult one for him. There's been no calm waters for him ever since he took over the job. So I kind of not looking at it like I would have maybe done if it was a big qualifier or a game against England in a major championships.
We had Vinnie Perth on yesterday. He was making the point that, oddly enough, given that it's not a competitive game, while it's England at Wembley, it might actually not be the most important of the games over the course. Yeah. And victory in either of the other 2 games and avoiding defeat in the other one would be much more important for them. So in a way, it was brave, and I can see why you would take the friendly, because obviously, you know, you've got to build your relationships, and hopefully England will come whenever we can have crowds again, and it'll be a bumper payday for the FAI. But there is a possibility we get spanked tonight.
Yeah, listen, and I actually heard Vinny saying that, and it's true that England are capable of doing it to some of the top teams in the world if they click on the evening. So that is a concern. But those players shouldn't be thinking like that. I heard Seamus Coleman's bullish cry to the rest of the team not to have an inferiority complex, to play on the front foot, and that's good. You expect them from a captain. He's a great leader of our team. But there's no doubt that if you're making a decision based or predicting one with your head as opposed to your heart, then we are vulnerable. There's no doubt. But I totally agree with that. I think in terms of the seeding for the World Cup draw, our position so precarious at the moment that even these 3 games are massive in terms of how it affects that, whether we become 2nd or 3rd seeds. So that is a concern. But there's no doubt that you're probably looking at the Wales and Bulgaria games as ones that are of more importance in terms of going forward. But of course, when you're playing England, it always grabs the attention. The only thing is, on this, Ger, this one, I don't know, for some reason it really hasn't. Maybe it's the hastily rearranged game that we didn't have any build-up in terms of anticipation, the fact that there's no fans there. I mean, that's the big one. But even listening to some of the younger lads, Ger, and I noticed that kind of like subtly in the build-up to this game, that maybe they don't put England, the game against England, on a pedestal in a way that people of our generation probably do. And I wonder if that is indicative now of the younger generation of Ireland fans, that you know, it's not something that they really go on about as much as probably we did. And certainly as a young kid growing up, those games against England in the late 80s, early 90s were iconic games. They really were. But I wonder if that is just a sign of the time. Certainly it was for me growing up in London as an Irish boy. I
think probably because Euro 88 is so iconic and we win.
Yeah. And it's probably the fact that those pioneers go onto the world stage and literally explode onto the stage, and obviously their first game is against England. But I don't know. Even talking about tonight's game, Ger, and that inferiority complex, even those games that against England in '88, where probably the media was so dismissive of Ireland, but the reality was we were so competitive, because I was looking back at that line thinking that even that game in '88, we had 3 Liverpool title winners in it. England only had 2. And then I'm probably looking at my position at centre half, and I'm thinking, well, we've got the likes of, in and around that time, we've got the likes of Mark Lawrence and David O'Leary, Paul McGrath. I mean, they're at very worst the equals of the likes of Adams, Walker and Mark Wright. And they're not even our first choice centre halves at the time. So, we although people had us down as the underdogs back then, we were such a good team.
I think that definitely helped. I do want to ask you about Joe Gomez before we get back into what's going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
It looks like an injury in training and international duty, every manager's favourite type of injury, is going to put him out for quite a period of time. In and of itself, on its own, in isolation, not that big a deal for Liverpool, but coming on the back of the Virgil injury, this is actually a massive problem for Liverpool now.
That's a huge problem, it really is. And I mean, I don't know the extent, but obviously I heard the breaking news straight away yesterday, and I thought, well, you didn't know what it was. Now, if it's been confirmed a knee injury, then that is a real concern, because you pretty much know very quickly whether or not it's a bad one. Your hope then is that it's one that's just 6 weeks as opposed to 6 months, in something really, really bad like Van Dijk has had. But you're right, Jurgen Klopp will be absolutely furious that this has happened, because he's someone that you would have earmarked as someone who would really pick up the slack of Virgil van Dijk, Joe Gomez. And you have to counter that with the fact that Matip is back fit, but he has a lot of injury problems. He has a lot of niggly injury problems. So this is a concern. This will force Liverpool, I would think, to have to do some business now in January. I know they've got the young lads coming through, and that's great. And of course, people talk about their inexperience, but you can counter that by saying those young centre-halves are playing against top-quality players in training, but it's still a different challenge actually playing in the Premier League as opposed to training against them brilliant Liverpool players.
Have you seen anything new, Gary, from Liverpool since the Van Dijk injury to suggest that this system can withstand a further injury? Have they changed anything to alleviate for the best defender in the world being absent? And how much can that help them now over the next couple of months? Or, well, it could be weeks or months, however long Gomez is out for as well.
Well, listen, initially, I mean, when they kind of like convert Fabinho back to that centre half, you're thinking, okay, you can see what they can maybe try and do, but you take someone of his experience out as well, so it does leave you so vulnerable. And I'm not sure if that Liverpool defence is designed solely by the fact that they have the best centre half in the world in Van Dijk. I genuinely think that's something that they try to do, not just because of his ability, but because they want to be pressing high, forcing turnovers high up the pitch, and giving the best goal-scoring opportunities on the turnover. So I'm not sure whether or not they're suddenly now going to rip up the whole game plan and defend deep, because I think as a young centre-half, I think you'd probably feel more comfortable in and around the halfway line than you would in and around your box, where Premier League strikers, midfielders get in range of your goal. So I think he'll look at the scenario, because he's a brilliant manager, and that Liverpool team has evolved every 5 or 6 months since Jurgen Klopp's been at the club. So if he feels he has to do something to give him the best opportunity, I wouldn't be surprised that he has, but I haven't noticed anything just yet.
The high line is going to be a talking point for sure. Like, you look at the first fixture back after the international break, it's Leicester City. It's Jamie Vardy going up against that high line. It's obviously a high line that he ripped to shreds against Manchester City. There's no way Klopp reconsiders that even a little bit, is there?
Well, I think he might possibly have done it anyway. It's not even what he does against Manchester City, Jamie Vardy. You remember him hitting that record-breaking goal against Liverpool when he used to terrorise them as well. So I think you're quite right. He's probably just the one centre forward that if you were looking to expose that high line, that Vardy is the one that can get you in, especially when you think about the quality they've got in midfield, that they can make those passes. But again, Jurgen Klopp will identify, well, listen, I'll keep a high line, I'll keep my midfielders right on top of there so that they can't make those passes. And that's the best way to go about it. So it will be fascinating. I'll be really intrigued to see how they do look to cope against Leicester.
The latest speculation is that it might be season ending for Joe Gomez. They're hoping that it isn't, because obviously it was non-contact, and the speculation he caught is studs in the turf, and he's already had an ACL injury. So
Is it the same knee, Ger?
I think that's what they're saying. Yeah.
That's a massive worry. It is. And I listen, in terms of the recovery, ACLs are not quite as troublesome as they were, 10, 20 years ago. Obviously, the medical departments have improved so much, but nevertheless, it's a concern that you've got the same injury. Listen, the flip side of it, you'll say, he's got the mental strength. He's come back from the first one. He can come back from the second one. But that is a real concern for the young man. I wish him a speedy recovery.
Let's talk about Ireland tonight. Obviously, again, COVID takes one of our strikers out. Aaron Connolly, who we're dying to see, especially now when we're not going to have McGoldrick. Yeah. He's gone again for the entire 3 games. Stephen Kenny hasn't had much luck, but that is also, they're the vagaries of international football, right?
Absolutely. And I was really glad to see him say yesterday that, listen, to dismiss it, there's no curse. He's had some bad luck, but there's no curse. Of course there is. And that shows good leadership. It really does. And it suggests that, well, it certainly resonates throughout the rest of the squad, because if he was to go bleating on about all these players that are missing, the rest of the guys in the squad who are chomping at the bit to get their opportunity would be a little bit downhearted. But it's a great chance for all those other lads. It really is, to put a marker down. And we've seen so often in football that players who probably didn't get their chance but suddenly did and made the most of it and went from strength to strength. So, but it has been such a tough time for him, because if you think about him talking about his philosophy, Stephen Kenny, and coming into the job, every time he's about to try and nail something down, COVID and this, unprecedented, I know we hear that word all the time, these unprecedented times, make it so difficult for him. It really has. And you're right. You probably look at McGoldrick and think, okay, that was a bit of an upset, really, that he has retired. But you felt then on a positive head that you go, okay, well, listen, there's a spin now for the likes of Connolly to play centrally, Robinson also. And then suddenly those 2 guys are out so late again, bearing in mind he'd have done all his work leading into it. But listen, this is what it is. You've got to deal with it. Managers, this is part of it.
So how do we play tonight?
I don't think he's going to deviate too much. I wonder whether or not Matt Doherty goes at left full now. And this is someone that people say he's played at Wolves. But when he was playing left back at Wolves, that's not the player who's now one of the elite performers in the Premier League as a right wing back. So, but having said that, how comfortably he reverted to a centre half in the last games, I have no doubt he can do it. But just don't expect him to be marauding forward like he does normally on that right-hand side. I think we'll definitely have to play the 2 holding midfielders as opposed to 1 holding midfielder that Stephen Kenny adopted when he first come into the role as manager in that kind of 4-3-3 system. I think we're too vulnerable against most teams, let alone one of the elite level teams like England, with just 1 holding midfielder. So he played 2. Will he then look to play Alan Brown in that advanced midfield role to get in support? Does Collins play at centre forward? Gives you that physicality, that ability to hold the ball up and allow other players to get into the game. So I don't think that for this one game that he's going to try something vastly different to what he's trying to achieve, regardless of the fact that he hasn't been able to use all the players he wanted to. Because ultimately, this game and the next 2 are preparation for those World Cup qualifiers in March. Now, listen, this is the last window till then, and that's going to be a hectic one in itself. Whether or not we're in a 5 or 6 team group. Depends whether or not we'll play 3 games in that week in March or 2. So, you know, he has to nail down. And as you just said there, Ger, I think it's very unrealistic to think that you're ever going to have a settled team in international football, because the differences between the games, the months, the weeks and everything, and so much changes in that period. So I think you've got to really nail it down from throughout your squad, not just your best 1 to 11. So these guys have an opportunity to do just that.
There's speculation in the papers this morning about the relationship between Shane Long and Stephen Kenny. And it is just speculation. We haven't seen anything confirmed by anybody.
Right.
But he's not in the squad. And apparently one of the reasons people are speculating about this is that Kenny's like, oh, look, Long's, as soon as he starts playing football, we'll bring him in. But he has played. Yeah. He's played a good bit of football compared to some of the people who are in the squad who have played no football. So
yeah, I know you've got to be. You're right, Joe. You've got to be so careful in terms of why you explain a player's admission, because it has to add up. And whether or not he's played football or not, we know Shane Long's so fit. And if that's a rule now for the rest of the squad going forward, that you're not playing in your first team, you're not gonna.
We've no goalkeepers. We'll have a squad with no goalkeepers in it.
And what's incredible, Jerry, is like at the beginning of the season, the first couple of weeks, I probably was looking at a team that Stephen Kenny could pick probably as such at the beginning of his tenure, and 1 to 11, all those players were Premier League players, and that was something that's been, Gary. Yeah, well, yeah, and then suddenly now, just 8 games into the Premier League season, you've only got Doherty, Egan, and Hendricks out of Stephen Kenny's first choice 11 as such, who are actually playing regularly for their team. So although he's got the issues with COVID and the withdrawals, I think he's got a bit of an issue there. And I don't think he needs to create a problem in terms of saying that scenario about Shane Long. Yeah,
I would definitely have Shane Long in my squad anyway. Like, no matter what situation we're in, the likelihood is we're going to need somebody in the last 15 minutes who's fast to stretch the opposition defence, who might get us a goal. Like, we're never going to be in... If we're defending a 1-0 lead, that's probably one of the best ways to defend it, is try and stretch them and pin them back a little bit. If we're chasing games, which, let's face it, is quite likely in the current situation, then you want to have Shane Long to come on, no?
Well, listen, I can understand that. And especially when you think about Stephen Kenny in terms of his teams and the under-21s, that centre-forward, more often than not, is the guy who stretches the pitch. They want to use that pace. You know, it's obviously Adam Eder or Connolly at times, but suddenly then McGoldrick comes in at number 9, and it does change the dynamic a little bit. People think, well, it doesn't, but it does, because he drops deep into 10 and he looks to play from there. That's when you need your runners in behind. So you're right. In terms of how he normally sets up his team, you think of Shane Long's strengths. It is playing on the shoulder of centre-halves. It is running hard and stretching the game, making the opposition defence drop. So it is an interesting one. I think Mick McCarthy probably says that he didn't play him at times because of his injuries and stuff, but that didn't really seem to add up either.
Now more than ever, Gary, it seems that it's vital for Ireland to have an identifiable system that, regardless of the personnel, we know what style of play Stephen Kenny is going to play, because of the chopping and changing and the injuries and the positive tests and everything that comes with this season.
Yeah, Owen, in terms of him initially, you know, as a manager and you're prior to getting the job, especially in the long build-up that he had for it, talked a lot about philosophy, changing the mindset of the players, and certainly the kind of opinion of those players from outside. But that never really highlighted that he can be a pragmatic manager himself at times. You know what I mean? In terms of his Dundalk teams, and I've talked to people who know, I've watched his career as a manager, that said, listen, if he needs to be pragmatic, he will be. But certainly this is this refocuses your thoughts, because you can dream about how you want to play, but the reality is, are you able to play that way? So I understand in terms of the philosophy, yeah, that's great. Passing out from the back, I think all our players are comfortable at it because they're doing it at club level. But you still have to impact on the game. And the very fact that we've got no goal in open play in 5 games suggests that needs to improve. Now, listen, that's not to say that the philosophy is the reason for that. And I counter that by saying, on any other given days, we could have had with 5 or 6 goals throughout those games, because we had loads of chances. So that's encouraging. So I don't expect him to change the philosophy because of the problems that he's having. But I think he might need to tinker with it a little bit from the kind of idealistic approach that he had prior to actually managing Ireland.
I'm looking back at historic results here, and unless I'm missing some, it's 1980 was the last time that Ireland were beaten by England, and since then Sorry, they beat us in 85. Is that right? They beat us in 85 in Wembley.
It's 35 years, isn't it, since they beat us?
That's right. 35 years. So that's right. 1985. Since then, we beat them in Stuttgart, and every other game has been a draw. 6 draws in a row. You know, you could say that the historical statistics would suggest that there's going to be a winner tonight because just regression to the mean. But you know, maybe we can squeak a 0-0 draw tonight and frustrate the hell out of them.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love to keep that 35-year unbeaten run going. I really would, for bragging rights, if nothing else. But it'll be a difficult challenge. I think even, like we said earlier, those 4 games at the end of the 80s, early 90s, we were so good. They were great battles. They really were. In fact, I listened to your interview with Tony Cascarino. It was brilliant from you two guys. It was so... He spoke so openly. It was actually hard to listen to at times, but it was a brilliant listen. But then I looked back and I was thinking about Cass. And have you guys recently seen his equaliser against England at Lansdowne?
I watched it while we were talking to him. It's amazing.
I mean, the header is brilliant. It really is. But if anyone hasn't seen it, just watch it for the crowd's reaction. That was unbelievable. It was so... The crowd... And it was if when a ball comes into the box from Stan... that the crowd anticipated, because the noise went up a little bit. Then when he gets that brilliant header, the noise is unbelievable. And I look back and I hadn't seen that goal for ages, and I probably forgot about it. But as soon as I saw it, I thought, that is exactly why I was so desperate to play for Ireland in front of the Irish fans, for that reaction. And it was just an unbelievable goal.
They should be sending round those clips to the team tonight.
Yeah.
It's a pity Shane Long's not there, you know, to see the clip of him as well. It's just I don't know. Look, it is what it is with Shane Long. I guess there's obviously something else that's going to come out in the next while. I'm not going to ask you for a prediction, but I might just ask you for a prediction. What's going to happen?
I think we're up against it. I really do. We don't know what Team England will play, but like we said, they've got such strength in depth. They've got a conveyor belt of talent, not only one that they kind of produce themselves. They can dip into other countries' production line and take their players. But I think it'll be tough for us tonight. But nevertheless, I think these lads are always capable of producing something. They never let us down, and I'm hopeful that they can get something positive today.
Gary, enjoy the game if that's possible. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
It's Gary Breen there giving us his thoughts. We went a bit over that. It's 7 minutes past 8 here. We've got some obviously brilliant duos that we brought your way from our Cadbury FC series of remote roadshows so far, and we are wrapping up this year's version of them with an absolute stunning lineup. So far, we've had Gary Neville and Teddy Sheringham, Packy Bonner and Shay Given, Saul Campbell and Ian Wright, Glenn Hoddle and Harry Redknapp. They were last week's. The final one for 2020 is going to be Jason McAteer and Kenny Dalglish in conversation. That's coming your way from Sunday, the 15th of November. All of those pieces are, of course, available to check out on the OTB Podcast Network. The best place to get this, though, is going to be the OTB Sports app. It's all with thanks to Cadbury FC. Check out cadburyfc.com for updates on promotions and giveaways. Pack show still to come. We're talking Davy versus Lohan, and we'll be joined by Irish swimmer Shane Ryan next. Back in a moment with Thursday's Backpages.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Looking for a football show with a bit of a twist?
Ferguson has a knack for seeing maverick and, kind of creative genius and sort of letting it flow.
Team 33, the football magazine show for the football purists. The very best interviews with the cult heroes of the past and a look at the cultural side of football. Team 33, live at 9 p.m. every Friday on OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app. Here on OTB, the big names keep on coming as part of our Cadbury FC series of remote roadshows. Episode 5 is going to be an epic, and it's coming your way from Sunday the 15th of November. It's Nathan in conversation with Jason McAteer and Kenny Dalglish. Stay tuned to OTB social channels and OTB Sports Radio for more details, and check out cadburyfc.com for updates on promotions and giveaways.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
OTB AM.
Irish Times leading with the Masters. OTBsports.com. Paul McShane, I'd like to have got to 100 Ireland caps. Difficult and intimidating Augusta is the ultimate golf course, as Padraig Harrington, who was talking to Adrian last night. Cork waiting on Collingwood permission to field Keane in Munster final. That'd be a bit of a kick in the nuts if he couldn't play against Tip. Sean O'Brien, if you're left in limbo, other contract offers can disappear quickly. So not very happy with how things finished at Leinster. The Irish Times leading this morning with obviously pictures of Rory at Augusta and Subaru eager to savour every single moment. He was obviously doing a bit of press yesterday there as well. The Guardian is not acceptable. Southgate says Clark had to go for remarks. And they've got a picture of Bryson DeChambeau obviously ahead of that one. No Cold War. Seamus insists there won't be a childish spat with Jack and Deck. Jack and Deck, Ant and Deck. The Irish Daily Mail, heartbreak. Tyrone boss is facing exit after 18 years. Butch backs sleeper McIlroy to ace Augusta. That was the difference of opinion between Butch and his Sky Sports colleague Paul McGinley about whether or not McIlroy could actually do it this week. Long gone. This is the speculation we were talking about. Paul Lennon says he has an exclusive here. Mystery over Shane's absence. The Star has learned that Long hasn't trained with Southampton since Friday's win over Newcastle, during which he played the final few minutes. Ralph Hasenhüttl gave his first team personnel who haven't been called up on international duty a few days off. So he could have gone to link up with them. Apparently Stephen Kenny's saying that he couldn't because he had been injured in club training. Maybe he got injured before that, who knows. But certainly there's a little bit of stuff that Stephen Kenny's going to have to come out and clear up. Given that speculation today, especially in the aftermath of the game. The Telegraph has the same picture of Bryson DeChambeau. Gomez blow for Klopp in England. Joe Gomez out, potentially with an ACL. Hasn't been fully diagnosed just yet. The scan was taken yesterday, results due today. Arch enemies, Kenny aiming for first ever Wembley win is the headline on the back of the Sun. Southgate, I fear getting dementia. So this is a story that obviously we've been talking about ourselves on the show. Just as mentioned there, Tony Cascarino was on last week, gave a very powerful testimony about the fears that he has about suffering dementia. Backpage of the Racing Post. Opening salvo and final chance. Northern Ireland and Scotland have Euro qualification in their sights. And then obviously the Masters is up today. Green for go. Katie Taylor over all the back pages. She's fighting, as we talked about yesterday, on Saturday for a mandatory defence of her title. And yesterday she met with the Ireland players. And that's the same picture on the back of both the Herald and the Irish Indo. Coleman, we must show our class, is the story on that one. So what are we at? 12 minutes past 8 here this morning. OTBAM live in association with Gillette. Good morning, Star with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Right, I'm delighted to welcome Irish swimmer Shane Ryan to the show this morning. He's been breaking records in Budapest at the International Swimming League. Shane, good morning to you. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. So a lot of people won't know what the International Swimming Leagues are. Can you maybe just explain it for everybody?
Yeah, so basically the International Swimming League, the ISL, is a professional league for swimmers now, because it's like Olympics, like during the Olympics, like everyone watches that every 4 years, and swimming is one of the most watched sports during the Olympics. So we have an opportunity where someone ended up starting like a professional league like the NBA, but for swimmers now. So there's 10 teams with 16 men, 16 women on each team, and it's a 2-day meet, and it's like all the races are back to back to back, and it's like basically a show that we have here, and that's what we're doing. So we're basically professional athletes getting, like, we get paid and we swim fast, and we have to recover really quick and swim fast again in like a few days. But it's great because it's like you have all the best swimmers in the world here competing, but it's like you don't have like that like stress level of like a world championships or the Olympics. It's like you come here to swim fast, you see people, and you have fun with it. So yeah, it's a really, really great opportunity that I'm be able to be here. Is it a relatively new concept, or has this been around for years, but just we didn't have any Irish swimmers in it, so we're probably unaware of it? No, it's a new thing. It started last year. The first season was last year. This season is the second season. So they ended up adding like 2 more teams. They had like the Tokyo Frog Kings and the Toronto Titans, which that's the team I'm part of, is the Toronto Titans. I was part of it last year for one meet with the LA Current, which is one of the top teams here. So I got to go over there, experience that. So that was really, really cool. And then this year I signed with the Toronto Titans, and we're basically in a little bubble in Budapest right now. And what's the bubble in Budapest like? So the bubble in Budapest is basically it's what the NBA did, but on a bigger scale. We have over 1,000 people like that are in these basically 2 hotels that are on an island. We cannot leave the island. We get a COVID test every 5 days. There's also drug tests that we get as well because, everyone has to be a clean athlete. There's like a lot of guidelines. We have to wear a mask everywhere we go, except for when we're eating. We're like 2 meters apart while we're eating. Even when we're like right out of the water, when we're like dead tired, having a hard time breathing, someone's there giving us a mask to make sure that like we're following all the rules, all the guidelines, so we're able to have this. So it's kind of crazy on that, like there hasn't been any cases, and there's over 1,000 people, and this is the biggest sporting event that's happening right now in COVID, and it's being run so well, and like everyone's enjoying it, everyone's following the rules, which is great.
It helps when you're swimming faster than you've ever swum before as well.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shock. I knew I was going to swim fast, but not this fast. I know I'm pretty good at like swimming in season, but short course, it's also short course meters. All these meets are, so it's a little bit more exciting. I knew like that's one of my strengths because it's like I'm strong off like these turns and like the underwaters and all that stuff. But yeah, no, it's just like I'm not focusing on like times or anything. Like I'm just focusing on the process on how I'm swimming it and just trying to get points for my team, which is just so much fun. It's just a great experience.
Sonia Sullivan always talked about, like she loved racing. She wasn't, okay, obviously clearly a world-class trainer, but and didn't really like when she was at her peak, didn't really like kind of picking races with the season. She just liked to get into race season and then race every time she possibly could because it brought out her competitive instinct and her spirit. This is a very different environment from anything that we've ever seen before because obviously people tend to peak for the big championships or for whenever the qualifying time windows are going to be open. Now when it's just pure racing competition, does it feel a bit more childlike and a bit more pure than the normal season would be?
Yeah, no, it definitely does because it's such a high scale because it's like you have like lights, you have like smoke machines coming out from behind, you have these big like, I kid you not, it's probably about like everything there with all the lights, the black curtains, the smoke machine. It's like you're looking at like maybe $500,000 worth of just equipment there. The cameras, they have underwater cameras. They have everything. It's like wild on what they're doing. So they put big money into it. So when you walk out and you're like waving like this and all that stuff, it's like you're not waving to the crowd because it's like you're waving for like the camera. So it's a bit weird when you walk out and they call your name, but like you have your team there, you have your own little team box. But yeah, no, it's great. It's like very pure racing because it's like, I love it because it's like I grew up racing almost every single weekend or racing in college. So it's just great just to get up and see what you can do. Yeah, you might have some bad swims every now and then, but it's just about just like getting up, recovering, do what you need to do and have fun with it, and try to get points on the board.
This sounds like one of the great spectator events once a COVID vaccine is fully rolled out, for people to descend on this island every year in a non-Olympic year, I presume, and watch these things happen. It sounds like this amazing spectacle of sport as much as anything else.
Yeah, it's honestly like I've been swimming my whole life, but I've also played all these other sports as well at like a decent level and been into other sporting events as well. I've never been more excited for like an event other than this one. It's like so much fun because it's short course. It's so close and so much like excitement in it. It's wild because like last year I experienced where they had like these things, like at the very end of the meet, they have these things called skins where each person gets to pick at a certain event. So for freestyle, you have to swim 350s all out, and it's 8 people in the beginning. And then they swim, they only have 2 minutes of rest, and they swim the fastest, all really, really fast. Then there's a top 4, and then it goes into top 2, and they race again. And it's the most exciting thing. There's double the prize money, double the points. It's a really, really, really cool experience. And even the light, it's more of a show than a swim meet sometimes. It's really, really cool. But yeah, once the COVID restrictions stop and everyone, when it's safe, the crowd will love it because my mom, she's been to swim meet. She's that's the funnest swim meet I've ever been to. My aunts, it's everyone who's gone to it is an ISL swim meet say it's the most exciting thing ever, and it really is.
Do you notice a physical difference in your performance when you're in the pool, when you're having fun compared to when you're under severe stress?
Yeah, I mean, like when you're having fun, you're not worried about like, how fast you're gonna go or like, oh, like I'm really tight here or like, oh, I don't really feel well. It's like at the end of the day, it's like you're here to like like I'm still like somewhat training through this as well because at the end goal is Tokyo. So it's like I'm still training through this. A lot of guys are still training through this, but it's all about like who can train through this, stay fit, and also race as fast as they can. So luckily, like I'm still undefeated in the 100 and the 50 backstroke. So like that's a really cool like thing I can say because it's just I'm able to lift really heavy. I'm able to swim, but I'm also swimming really fast at the same time. But like my coach and I, we've been working towards this. But it's just about being able to get up and do what you need to do and swim fast and try to be better than you were the other day. Sometimes it doesn't work, but I mean, right now in the 50 backstroke, it's been working. The other events I've been seeing like, some really good times when I'm really tired or back-to-back events. But yeah, it's just all about how you can recover and it's all about a mental game, really.
I know the interactions are obviously limited because of the virus, but have you picked up anything from other camps, from other setups? I know obviously you're probably well attuned to how other countries do things when it comes to swimming, but are you learning much from the international event that this is?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the first time anything like this has ever happened where everyone's here in a bubble, all competing together. But, like, for me, I love, like, nitpicking other swimmers' ideas and what they believe in, like, how to do a certain start or how to certain swim and what their way of process, like, their think process is, just so I can try to better my horizon and my, like, swimming experience. And even the coaches, some of the coaches here have been coaching for like 30 some years, and that's just one coach. So I like nitpicking their brains and seeing what they think and how they do, because I mean, you want to learn, you want to like, cause I'm a student of the sport. Like I love going in and working hard, but working hard only gets you so far when you're trying to work smart as well. Like if you hit those two things together like that, like that's an endless possibilities of something fast. And that's what I've been doing. I've been working smart, but also working hard at the same time, and things have been paying off. So it's great that I'm here and able to nitpick people's minds and see how they think, and also race some of the best in the world when, right now is a really big training block for swimming, but like everyone's racing really fast. So it's really cool.
When you say you've been in all these other areas and this is the sporting event that stands out to you, outside of swimming, what else did you do when you were growing up? What were the sports that you played?
Yeah, so I ended up playing. I played a little bit of Gaelic football growing up because my dad, he played back in the day for like, if he played county for Portarlington and County Laois. So like there was like a league in the States that like we were able to do in like Southwest Philadelphia. So played that, played lacrosse. I played basketball, volleyball, American football, soccer, baseball, volleyball, and golf. So I played all the sports you could think of.
Quite a selection there. What was your position in American football? And what level did you play to?
So I played in high school, and I was a punter, and they tried me out for wide receiver, but there was one day where I made the decision to play, and I just ran outside like in the back of my high school in full football pads. But meanwhile, I was supposed to be at like dry land, like a core session for swimming. And my coach is out there as well. So I just run out in full football pads. And I'm like, okay, I'm playing football this fall or this autumn. And he was just shocked, absolutely shocked. So I ended up playing wide receiver for one game. But they were really worried about me getting hit pretty hard because it's like I'm a swimmer. So it's like they knew how like good I was at that time, but I didn't. I just wanted to play different sports. So I ended up primarily being their main punter then.
Punter's a bit safer.
Yeah, it's a bit safer. I'm about like 10 meters behind the line, and I'm just kicking a ball. And every now and then you can get like a good tackle in if they get past the lineman, and I've done that twice. So yeah, I just like enjoying playing other different sports, and I didn't really take swimming serious until like when I was 18, when like colleges were like, oh hey, like you can come to this college for free and swim, and also get an education for free, and come out like school debt free. I was like, maybe I should start taking swimming serious.
That sounds like a good plan. So when did you get your growth spurt? Were you a 6'6" punter in high school? Like, was that, because that's quite a big target for those guys attacking you as well.
Yeah, no. I was a string bean. I was very lanky in high school. Very, very lanky. No, I've always been tall. But I was very, very skinny. I ended up like gaining like 10 kgs within like 8 months of like training, because it was the first time ever doing doubles of swimming, first time ever lifting, first time actually caring about like swimming as a sport. So like my body completely changed when I went off to college, which was kind of crazy to think about now. Like that's a lot of weight, and just like, you know, it was good weight too. But no, like in high school, I've just always been tall, always been skinny, and it just like swimming just came really natural to me, and just did really well at it. And like my mom actually was my swim coach growing up as well, so she always encouraged me to play other sports. But she's like, no, but you're gonna always have swimming in the background. So I would go to school, go to my school sport, go home, eat really quick, or eat in the car on the way to swim practice, because like I said, my mom's a coach, so she brought me swim practice. I don't know how I did it back then, but now I'm like done after one big practice.
That's fair enough. Your mum has Mayo links as well.
Yeah. So her grandfather is from Ballina in Mayo. So we have cousins over there as well, which is kind of cool.
They were all celebrating because they believe Joe Biden is also from Ballina. So just to give you fair warning here, Shane, if you've got Olympics next year, both Laois and Mayo will be claiming you. Yeah, that's true. That'll be pretty cool though. But I'm just happy just to have the support, and you know, and it's great that I have like such a big family like in Ireland, especially with on my dad's side, because it's like honestly I wouldn't really be here if it weren't for them, because they're like before the Olympics, I lived here, and it was a hard time because I had no car, I had no money. I lived for the weekends to go down to Port Arlington on the train, trained hard during the week, basically lived by myself in an old moldy house. But you know, like they helped me significantly, and I really give them a lot of credit for helping me out, and they've still helped me out as well. What is the crack with Tokyo? It looks now like if the vaccine is as good as Pfizer say it is, then there's a really good chance that actually the Olympics is going to go ahead and could go ahead in front of fans next year, which would be absolutely amazing. Have you officially qualified, or what's the pathway between now and then?
So the pathway is a bit different from what it was from the last Olympics. So there was only 2 meets. So I already had the A standard for the qualifying time, but I just didn't do it at the right meet, which is fine. So I mean, from my understanding, it's like I already did the A standard, so now I just need to do it again. You know, like I know I'm more than capable of it. I'm in better shape now than I was over a year ago. So we had to like pre-qualify ourselves for the Olympics in 2019 World Championships, but I missed that deadline. But now we have our Irish Olympic trials, and that's where we need to get the A standard for the Olympics. So I've done it before. I always swim fast at the Irish Olympic trials, and I always like get the Olympic A standard there. And I love the pool. Like Dublin's pool is like, I love it because it's like one of the fastest pools I swam in, and it's a great pool just in general. But it's not only like my main event is the 100 backstroke. It's not only that like if I'm going to get the A standard, it's about how far I'm going to get underneath of it. And it's not just the 100 back. I have the 100 freestyle now. And also I picked up an event a couple months ago, the 100 fly. And I'm only like a second off the A standard, even though I only swam that one time. So that picked that up pretty quickly as well. So there's 3 events now that I'm like shooting for the Olympics, and then plus the relays as well. And
maybe a medley, given that, you know, you're obviously not busy enough. You may as well do the medley, right?
Yeah. So we have like the medley relays as well. So like that's up there as well, because like we could do really well in that, because like some of the other guys on my team, like they're getting faster as well, as same with me. And then once we get to Tokyo, it's happy days. All the hard work is done. You just go out, race, do what's best for the country, and try to get your hand on the wall before everyone else, and just move on to the semifinals, and then finals, and then try to get a medal or something. Because that'd be really, really cool if I can do that.
Shane, enjoy the bubble in Budapest. Great to talk to you. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's Shane Ryan there from Budapest this morning, where he is competing, and we'll keep an eye on that, and you can hear more about it on our sports bulletins and on the OTB Sports app. Now, this weekend, Clare and Wexford meet in knockout hurling. 29 minutes past 8 here on OTB AM this morning. In Clare's corner, we've obviously got Brian Lohan. In Wexford's corner, we've got Davy Fitz. It's fair to say they don't get on now like they used to.
Brian Lohan and Davy Fitzgerald, 2 of the most important bricks in the yellow wall for Clare in the 1990s and early 2000s. In 95 and 97, they were the goalkeeper and fullback combination for Clare as All-Ireland champions and for the All-Star team of both of those years. Lohan looked out for Davy, Davy did his best to look out for Lohan, and you had a golden era in Clare hurling. Here is Sil O'Connor of Clare FM reminiscing in the good old days.
25 years ago this year, they were a long, long way from 2 metres apart, I can tell you, on that occasion, as they went in search of the Liam McCarthy.
John Troy missed it. Oh, it's swept away there by David Fitzgerald. Good save by the keeper.
There was times every now and then when one player would back up the other, as you would expect from a goalkeeper and a fullback, and the huge understanding that they would have between them. That's what they had, but the whole thing was based on a performance in a Clare jersey.
And it's Brian Lohan who makes the clearance. That's terrific full-back play.
As a player, as two players, they were absolutely top of their game when they were playing the game.
Things have changed quite a bit since then. Not only is Clare's golden era a bit of a distant memory, despite the 2013 success, but Davy Fitz and Brian Lohan now simply don't get on. According to Davy, their relationship has never quite recovered from a row between them over a Fitzgibbon Cup game in February 2014. Now, this is when Davy's Limerick IT side were drawn against Lohan's University of Limerick team in the competition's quarter-finals. LIT were 6-1 outsiders for that match, which took place at the UL grounds. Here's Philip Ivers, centre forward for LIT that day.
As far as I know, Tony Kelly was the only inter-county senior player that we had, and UL was littered with Clare, Kilkenny, Limerick hurlers, Tipperary hurlers. The minute we won the qualifying match, there was never a case of, oh, we don't want UL. I think it was a case of, we want to get UL and we want to test ourselves. And I think Davy was the very same, because I can remember going into a meeting when we were told we were playing UL, and big smile on his face. He said, this is the best draw we could have got.
Now, the legend of that day begins with LIT togging off and warming up, not at the UL grounds, but at the other side of Limerick City.
It was the fact that it's only 20 minutes over the road. So, and he wanted us to have a meeting before the match.
So it wasn't to do with being given a small dressing room or anything like that in UL?
There might have been a touch of that, yeah. There might have been. I don't think he was too happy about where the dressing room was going to be, more so than the size.
So with no sign of LIT at the changing facilities, the first sign of Davy's squad showing up at UL that day was when they emerged from through the trees beside the pitch. Spectators say it was this unprecedented sight of bodies appearing from nowhere. But what did the LIT players think?
Afterwards, everyone was like, even the media was like, oh, it was mental, he came out through the trees. But that wasn't planned at all. It was actually, we were driving up on the bus and we could see the pitch through the trees. But in UL, you have to drive kind of 2 kilometres around to get to the dressing rooms. So I think he more or less just saw the field, and we were after talking out in LIT anyway. So he said, he just told the bus driver to stop, that we'll walk through the trees to get to the pitch. But I think everybody became so obsessed with mind games that they all thought it was a masterstroke, but it actually wasn't. It was just a spur of the moment thing. It just so happened where we were after coming through the ditch that UL had their cones set up at that near goal. And we were running down to the far end, and he started calling us back. He said, no, we're going to use this end, and that's it. We didn't ask any questions. It's Davy Fitzgerald, you're not going to challenge him, are you? I don't think we used the cones at all. I think we more or less actually stampede all over the cones and had no use for the cones at all.
And did the bus stay parked there at the other side of the trees, and did he go back to the trees afterwards?
I don't think so, no. I think we used the dressing room afterwards as well, so maybe there was a little bit of mind games, I don't know. But he certainly hadn't those tuned into what he was doing.
LIT won the game, by the way. Tony Kelly scored 110 of LIT's 216. UL clocked up 113. There was no handshake between the managers afterwards.
I can remember at the time, all right, there being a little bit of tension after the game. And we could never really figure out why there was tension, but there was tension between both sets of players. And it's funny because there was players on the UL team that we would have hurled with underage and were good friends with, and the same with every other player from different counties. But there just seemed to be a little bit of a standoff after the match, and nobody really knew why. We just presumed it was because it's your local derby in college hurling that, you know, it's the same as a club match. And there's always going to be that little bit of tension. But I can remember there being a little bit of a tension after the match, yeah.
A couple of months later, Davy rang Brian to try clear the air, but there was no sign of peace. According to his book, Davy said to him, "You know me long enough. You know I'd do anything for you. But when we're on opposite sides in a game, it's war. It has to be. You need to get over this." 1 year later, the sides met again. This time, UL came out on top. And once again, there was no handshake. We're now at 2015. Davy is still Clare manager, but they end up crashing out into qualifiers for a second consecutive year. And the divide gets deeper when Lohan calls for an independent review into the performances of the Clare team. Davy took this as a dig to his dad, who was county secretary, and Davy said in his book that he couldn't repeat in said book the text he ended up sending to Lohan. As you might imagine, things did cool down a little bit once Davy left his job as Clare boss. He took over as Wexford manager, and he joined us in studio in 2018 when he had just written this book, and here he is talking about his relationship with Lohan and with Jamesy O'Connor.
I don't actually have a grudge to hold against him now, and that's the truth. I'm just told the story as it was.
Yeah, it's the cold facts of what happened sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I think the lads have to accept this too. They were prepared to write stuff and say stuff, and that's fine. But now I think they've got to also accept that maybe I'm allowed to say what I want to say as well, you know. But I don't have a major... I'm fine now, no matter what the story is.
Last year then, Brian Lohan publicly questioned if Davy's passion on the sideline was genuine passion and described some of his antics as not great. Of course, Lohan would a few months later become Clare boss, and that meant a first National League meeting between them earlier this year, which Clare won, but again involved no handshake. A few months later, Davy appeared on the Sunday game, and it seemed he was in the mood for making up.
As regards going forward with Clare, and I can say this 110%, I honestly want to see Brian doing well, and that's 100%. And we'll come across each other on the sideline, and there might be no talk or whatever. I'd like to see him doing well. Disappointed that it is that way, because I suppose I got hurt at the start from a bit of criticism, and probably Brian got hurt that I said stuff in the book. Maybe we should be big enough to forget about it and move on. There's a lot more things in life, so there is. But as regards Brian Lohan, the player, could say nothing, and I know, having dealt with him even professionally wise, is a good guy, and if we don't talk, we don't talk. But certainly going forward, I would honestly wish him the best.
And John, will you give that ball one big final twist for us? And the first team out. These games are going to be played at neutral venues next weekend. Who have we first, John?
On Clare.
So we've Clare out first. Got themselves back in the reckoning at the weekend. An important victory for them. They will play
Lochgarman.
Well. Clare and Wexford.
This week's quarter-final draw just could not have gone any other way. Just when it seemed like a period of self-reflection for humankind everywhere this year would thaw the relationship between these old comrades, they get drawn together in knockout hurling. There is a good chance that there won't be a handshake between them this weekend, and Sil O'Connor thinks it will be a while before either party gets around to building those bridges once again.
I don't think it's on any of their lists that when they're out of management, maybe in 20 or 30 years' time, that they'll ring up and make up. If it happens, it happens. You know, but I can guarantee you it's not on their list at the moment, and they have no intention of it, because they just look at it as something that's passing by. I just know it's not even in their heads, but it's not against each other. It's just that it's not on the list at the moment. They would tell you, Owen, there are bigger things to think about over the next few days.
OTB AM.
We don't, luckily enough. John Duggan is here. John, good morning to you.
Hey, Ger Eoin, how are we doing?
What's going on?
Well, the Masters starts at midday Irish time. We just can't wait for this next 4 days of beautiful sport. 4 Irish in the field. Shane Lowry teeing off with Tiger Woods and Andy Ogletree at 5-1. 5 o'clock Irish time. Rory McIlroy in a group with Dustin Johnson, the world #1, and Patrick Cantlay. 11 minutes past 5, like the trains. James Sugru, the amateur from Cork. What a week for him. along with Jose Maria Otba and the American Andrew Putnam. And then at 6:17, Gray McDowell with Siwoo Kim and Nate Lashley, who is spending time with over the next couple of days. So Open champion Shane Lowry knows the victory this week, maybe the only thing to surpass what he did at Royal Portrush last year.
To be the first Irishman to ever wear the green jacket would be pretty special. So that's probably one of the only things that could top it. And like, look, obviously I'm very, I've worked very hard all my life, and I've really put my mind down to it, and I achieved something very, very special last year. And yes, I probably won't ever top that, but if it is, it'll maybe be around here.
Bryson DeChambeau, the tournament favourite after a 6-shot win at the US Open, that takes the limelight off Rory McIlroy.
It feels like everything this year, it's more subdued, it's more relaxed, it's sort of just, that's the feel for me anyway. Obviously Bryson's going to be feeling a little different because the attention is on him, and deservedly so, coming off the back of a major win and basically disrupting the game of golf over the last few months. It's a big story, and I'm just as intrigued as everyone else to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, so it should be great, lads. Preview and selections on the app for the Masters, which gets underway at noon. So hope you're looking forward to it.
We did Virtual Insanity on the show yesterday. If anybody missed it, that is, you can just search John Duggan Virtual Insanity for your tips. There's too many people in contention. That's the problem.
It's like the Grand National. It's like the Grand National.
It is, isn't it? There's definitely, and I was looking, I wondered if everybody in that kind of mid-tier, if you stuck €1 each way and those guys at 30 to 1, is one of them going to finish in the top 10? You get your money back guaranteed, and then potentially, I don't know. I was
difficult
trying to come up with some strategies for this, but more than that, I really think no fans is going to remove some of the horror of Amen Corner for people, and I think that's why the chance of having a bolter, a Mike Weir figure, like I really think that this is one of those years where it's not going to be one of the marquee names of golf who wins it, because there's far less pressure on everybody.
There is, and when I first watched the Masters in 1987, a guy called Larry Mize, who's from Augusta, chipped in and won the Masters, and he wasn't expected to do that. And generally, when I've been looking through the years since then, there haven't been that many bolters, as you say, that have won the tournament. Generally, it is the marquee names, like Tiger Woods, intimidated everybody 18 months ago, wearing the red on the Sunday. They all put it in the water. Francesco Molinari hasn't recovered since, and yeah, maybe this year is the year for a shock. And
the surge of energy coming from somebody making birdie on 16 or whatever, like, you're not going to have any of that.
No, you're not. You'll hear more from the trees of those birds, those beautiful birds that are always so much in Ryan Sound. I just can't wait. Like, I just going through the years, like the Nick Faldo to Greg Norman, don't let the bastards get you down, when he hugged him in '96 after Greg Norman collapsed. Jordan Spieth's collapse when Danny Willett won was like utter Hollywood drama, utter drama when he put it in the drink on 12. To Woods winning, to Phil Mickelson winning his first major in 04.
Rory discovering a new part of the course we didn't know existed.
The bin, he discovered the bin off the 10th, and he was so well set. I think he started 65, 67. He was absolutely set to win that. And the great thing about Rory is he came back and he won the next major, the US Open, but he just hasn't won the Masters. And yeah, as you say, will the pressure be less on Rory now on Sunday if he's in contention than it was a couple of years ago when he's talking to press conferences about Patrick Reed and it all backfired on him? It's just, I can't wait for it. I just can't wait. England, we're playing tonight in a friendly, the Republic of Ireland, 8 o'clock start. Callum Robinson will miss the match after testing positive for COVID-19. And the Ireland skipper, Seamus Coleman, will not be whispering any sweet nothings to Jack Grealish or Declan Rice.
It's not my problem. Listen, Jack and Declan decided what they're going to do, and that's entirely up to themselves. Obviously, top players who we would like to have, but they just seen it elsewhere. So it's not like I'm going to be shouting in their ear about that. But by no means, got to concentrate on my team and our players. And everyone's got their own personal preferences, and whatever they decide. And we obviously just want to do well for ourselves. But there's no, it's going to be none of that childish stuff. No, definitely not.
I haven't watched a lot of England friendlies recently, but they've also had a lot of boring matches where everybody's been complaining about Southgate being too conservative and the team not quite finding its rhythm. It's the qualifying games that they take quite seriously and that they win easily. Is that, again?
Well, England have always been brilliant in qualifiers. Maybe apart from the Beckham-Greece game, they've always found qualifiers simple, friendlies. They thumped Wales recently. I think they're going to thump us tonight. They got Grealish. Look, Grealish last week was sensational.
He's very good.
Against, the way he just shouldered that player out of the way, it was just, he's going to score against us, isn't he? It just is so written that he will score tonight. Calvert-Lewin is playing really well this season. We've got 4 players. What is it? Ronan Curtis, James Collins, Adam Ida, and Shawnee Maguire to pick from when it comes to attack. I just think it's going to be a tricky road for Stephen Kenny. Look, obviously the Wales and Bulgaria games are more important for seeding, but I think we're going to end up in that 3rd tier of seeds for the World Cup. A lot of this is inherited, but it's not great. And also for Liverpool fans, not great that Joe Gomez got a bad knee injury yesterday in training, was on his own. Really feel sorry for him. But Virgil van Dijk also out. What does that mean for Liverpool's title chances? A scan is forthcoming, but he could be out for a while. Northern Ireland, we are 90 minutes away from the Euros, which they could be playing in Dublin. They play Slovakia, who are no great shakes tonight. I've written a preview, which will be appearing on the site this morning, about that match. 7:45 kickoff. Scotland also bidding to qualify away to Serbia. Mickey Harte's future as Tyrone manager up in the air now. If you read all the back pages, a request for a 1-year extension reported to have been turned down. It's believed Tyrone GA Chiefs are keen on interested candidates applying for a 3-year deal in charge of the Red Hand County.
Will he not just apply for a 3-year deal, though? Is that not just the automatic thing that happens here? There's a game of brinkmanship. He wants a year just to finish off and see where it's going to go. But he can just apply for a 3-year gig, and then they have the same issue, right?
Does Mickey would Mickey Harte want a 3-year gig?
I don't know. I think, look at the quality of player coming through. They're it's a really exciting, now that they have, McShane didn't go, right? And now that they have McKenna back.
Yeah.
And now that Canavan is just reaching that point where he's going to be worth his starting place, physically mature enough to be able to handle it, I think it's a great gig.
Is Mickey the right man for the gig, though?
I don't know about that. I'd say Mickey thinks he is.
Mickey is won 3 All-Irelands, and nobody has won any All-Irelands in Tyrone before or since. And obviously Mickey's still there, but do Tyrone maybe need a fresh voice? Maybe need someone from that era, who was a player back in the noughties, maybe to bring a fresh voice to the equation. Mickey's got nothing to prove. Mickey could go into any county and do a great job. But we'll have to see how that plays out. Racing at Clonmel does start today, 12:15. Going is heavy, but it has passed that inspection.
I'm just looking at England's Nations League results.
Yeah.
They were away at Iceland. They won 1-0. There's both teams had a man sent off. 0-0 at Denmark. They beat Wales 3-0 in that friendly you were talking about. They beat Belgium, who are obviously very good, 2-1. They were beaten by Denmark at Wembley in their last game out, and they'd a man sent off in that. And so this is the game after that.
Yeah.
And their lineup that night had Harry Kane up front, Rashford and Mason Mount behind them, Phillips and Rice in the middle of midfield, Maitland-Niles and Reece James, who got sent off, a back three of Kyle Walker, Conor Cody and Harry Maguire, with Jordan Pickford in goals.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get a result against that team.
No, we will not get a result.
Jordan Pickford.
I think Pope will be playing tonight. I think Pope's playing tonight.
Right.
So Seamus Coleman won't be meeting his colleague from Everton. I think the Irish team is at a low ebb right now, and I think Stephen Kenny's going to find it difficult to. It's going to take a while for Stephen to impose what his philosophy will be on the situation.
Yeah, and I actually do buy the point about this not being the most important of the three games, that if we were to beat Wales, then this would be a good, irrespective, if we win one of those two Nations League games with a performance that is like, yeah, okay, everybody sees what they're doing, but I don't know, we shouldn't really be going in thinking we're going to get battered. I mean, I think
I'm sure they're not. I just am.
I think we are too. It shouldn't. We traditionally, it's 1958 the last time England battered us. That's a long time. There's a reason for that. Like, we take these games seriously. They might not. Well, they don't care about this.
It's 35 years since they beat us. 35 years. Gary Lineker scored in 1985.
You have to believe in what we can do. Like, believe in a 1-1 draw. This is the sort of victorious result that we can expect tonight. If Ireland played a game of their lives and England fall flat, absolutely a miracle can happen. A 1-1 draw could occur.
But the sad thing is, in 1991, we went to Wembley. We should have won the game.
Yeah.
And that's where we were in world football at the time. And now we were better. We were a better team than England back then at a competitive level, and now it's nowhere close.
Ireland are 7-1, roughly the same price that LIT were against UL in the famous grudge match. Now, what's going to happen? Are Clare going to beat Davy this weekend?
By the way, Grealish is 17-10 to score any time in the game. Just saying. Clare will lose to Wexford, but neither team will be in an ass's roar of the All-Ireland Championship.
I think Wexford have a chance, no?
No, I don't think so. I think Galway showed where the two teams were at in that Leinster match.
Yeah.
And I think Limerick are ahead of Wexford. I think Galway are ahead of Wexford. You can argue that maybe the Kilkenny now, Resurgent, are ahead of Wexford, where Tipperary in the pecking order.
It'd be a very Galway thing to do, to beat the lard out of you in the Leinster Championship by 10, 15 points, whatever, and then get overturned in an All-Ireland series later on.
Yeah. It has been a different Galway the last years, and this is Shane O'Neill's first year, so we still don't really know where Galway are at. And then Saturday night will be really, really interesting from a perspective of Cody versus Galway again. And then you've got to remember as well, folks, the way this championship is, Cork or Tip, no, one of those two teams are gone on Saturday afternoon, Cork and Tip.
4-0, 18-1, 4-1, 25-1, and I'm just looking for 5-0, 45-1 for a 5-0.
Sorry, I'm being too cynical about it this morning, so I apologise for Irish fans for being a bit cynical.
Do you have any traditions about watching the Masters? Is there anything?
I'm not like my friend Ian Dempsey, who actually makes pimento cheese sandwiches and wears the green jacket. I wouldn't really, you know, it used to be always the curtains closed in Miles Dungan back in the day when you watch it with your dad and stuff. The whole tradition for me is that everybody used to shut up. And the phone, like I'll be on Twitter now and I'll be tweeting away and, you know, scrolling away, but everybody just has to shut up. And no, there can't be any distractions at all.
John, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. It's 8:51 this morning. It's time for our Lockdown TV Survival Guide. Eoin, everybody wants to see these every week so far. They've been doing great business. This is, again, one of those weekends where there's just too much stuff on.
After the conclusion to last weekend, I'm not going to watch any sport this weekend, so here, have it. What do you like? Here's what you should do if you want to sit down and watch sport all weekend. Masters, obviously, weekend starts today, basically. Different tee times this year. You know, the dying daylight in Georgia is something we can all be thankful for as Irish viewers of the Masters. You'll have selected groups from early in the afternoon every day. 6 o'clock is when the full coverage does get underway on the first couple of days anyway. But 12:30, you probably have some featured groups coming along if you want to get your fix from early tomorrow afternoon and from today, tomorrow, then after that, and during that, I should say, the rugby, Ireland against Wales in this new Nations Cup from 7 o'clock. Make an early start for yourself on Saturday if you want. New Zealand against Argentina is in the Rugby Championship from 6:10 in the morning. Are you one of those? Does your bio clock force you to get up early on a Saturday, Ger?
My kids do.
Or your kids do. Is 6:10?
6:10 too early. Too early.
6:10 too early.
Yeah.
So you get like Australia games, but you don't get New Zealand games, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But if you are the type of person who has your kids waking you up for New Zealand time, then you will get to see them play against Argentina on Sky Sports at 6:10 on Saturday morning. Obviously no Premier League this weekend, but good stuff in the Women's Super League. A lot of it free to air as well on BT Sport, who are doing a lot on their YouTube channel. Top of the table, Manchester United take on Manchester City at 12:30 on Saturday. Camogie then from 1 o'clock, Clare against Cork should be a cracker. It's on RTE from 1 o'clock. It's quarterfinals weekend, by the way, in Camogie. 1:15 then, we've got the first of those Ulster semi-finals, Donegal against Armagh. Before 2 o'clock, the game we've all been talking about, Wexford against Clare, but it's not on your television. You're going to have to stump up for the GEA Go day subscription, day pass, or game pass, I should say, to actually get Wexford against Clare. I've got a feeling this could be like one of the highest figures ever for GEA Go within Ireland anyway, for it to actually see this game, because everybody wants to see it. It's knockout hurling. 2:45 then is the next Camogie appointment. It's Tip against Waterford in that one. And then in the Ladies All-Ireland in football, Armagh against Mayo at 3:15 on TG Cahir. Armagh scored goals against Tyrone a couple of weeks ago. A lot of them were worldies, actually. They were incredible goals. So that should be a cracker at 3:15. Then that other hurling qualifier is on telly at 4 o'clock, Cork against Tip. It's being broadcast on Sky. And of course, you might think you're winding down after a 4 o'clock kickoff, throw-in, I should say, on a Saturday afternoon. But Augusta comes good from about 6 o'clock for the full coverage on Saturday evening for that. But 50 minutes after the full coverage starts, you got the Leinster hurling final So there is no possibility of you even thinking about not using 2 or 3 screens on Saturday evening. 6:15 is Kilkenny against Galway in the Leinster final. You've got Nations League, you've got Portugal against France at 7:45, which might tie you over if you're not that interested in the Masters. But then Katie Taylor against Miriam Gutierrez is the main event of Saturday night. 10:30 is what Ronan Mullen was telling us for Ring Walk yesterday. I have got these times notoriously wrong in the past when it comes to boxing and when it comes to UFC. Be ready for 9:30, 10 o'clock, just in case things get pushed up earlier in the card, because I don't want to be responsible for you missing out on Katie Taylor. It is free to air again this weekend, so plenty of stuff for free this weekend, which is good. Other stuff Saturday night, if all that isn't enough for you, you've got Connacht against Scarlett in the Pro 14 at 7:35, and later on in the night, you've got Terence Crawford taking on Kell Brook at 12:30 on Saturday night. Now, Sunday, it's an early start time for the Formula 1 fans. 8:30 in the morning is the Turkish Grand Prix. News Now then is where you want to be at for your beloved Kildare. Ger, they take on Meath at 1 o'clock. 1:30 is possibly the main football game of the weekend then. Definitely the main football game of the weekend. It's Galway against Mayo in the Connacht final. 1:30 Sunday afternoon. It's the same time though as Down against Cavan, which is on the BBC, and then there's another good clash in the Women's Super League at 2:30, which is Arsenal against Chelsea. Munster take on Ospreys at 2:45 in the Pro 14. You've got France against Fiji. I'm just throwing that in there in the middle of Sunday afternoon, one of those games that could possibly be crazy. Oh, yeah. Anything with Fiji in it, any opportunity to watch Fiji is always a good one. 3:30 then is Dublin against Laois in the Leinster football semi-final. And Munster hurling final throw-in time is 4 o'clock on Sunday. Limerick against Waterford in that one. From 5 though, Wales against Ireland in the Nations League, and then Austria against Northern Ireland at 7:45. And as ever, you've got the Masters going from earlier, obviously on Sunday. 3 o'clock is when full coverage is set to get underway in that one. And of course, the NFL all Sunday night. 6 o'clock, pick of the fixtures maybe is Buccaneers at Panthers. 9:05. Fixture is Bills at Cardinals, and I'm going to advise as well Ravens at Patriots if you want to stay up late on Sunday night. You've also got Belgium against England in the Nations League as well, if you so fancy it. If you've got an idle screen, if you've got an iPad there that hasn't already overheated, throw on Belgium against England at 7:45.
Our brain cell left at that point. 8:56 this morning. We're going to speak with Nikki Daly next. Plenty more to come, including Joe Molloy's Masters preview. Stay tuned.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Friend of the pod?
Just to be clear, Joe, I haven't committed my future to any club yet, so I did have a very nice time down at Adair Manor. I really liked my time at Adair Manor, and I felt comfortable at Adair Manor. Nathan.Murphy at offtheball.com, and I think we could have a very fruitful relationship.
I thought you looked right at Adair. I did.
You did.
OTB Sports Golf Weekly with Now TV, live every Thursday afternoon on OTB Sports Radio. Tune in 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Hello there, you're welcome along. It is Scoreboard Jungle. It's our GAA quiz. It is coming at you right across the inter-county season this winter. We have had Dr. Con Murphy this evening. I am delighted to welcome 7 All-Irelands jangling in his back pocket. He's feeling very confident, I can tell you. The bomber himself, Owen Lifton, hello.
How are you doing, Joe?
I'm right, you're confident. That's the word in the street.
I'm not confident. No, I was up all night watching the election. The whole brain is gone to sleep.
Well, here is the crack. 2 rounds. So round 1 is to take your points and the goals will come round. Basically, 5 questions, 30 seconds. You get 1 point per correct answer.
Fire away.
Okay. Owen Liston, your time starts now. Who scored the Kerry penalty in the 1985 All-Ireland football final against Dublin?
Jacko.
Who was the Kerry manager before Paddy O'Shea?
Ogie.
Who was named 2006 Footballer of the Year?
Paul Galvin.
Name one Kerry man on the team in the Millennium.
Jacko.
Who did Kerry beat in the 1997 All-Ireland final?
Mayo.
Okay, so who scored? Your time is up. You got through all 5. So I asked you who scored the penalty for Kerry in the 85 All-Ireland final. You said Jacko. That was correct. I asked you Kerry manager before Paddy, and you said it was Ogie Moore, and that was correct. Now, he's not going to like this. I asked you who was the 2006 Footballer of the Year. You said Paul Galvin.
Jesus Christ.
Kieran Donaghy. Kieran Donaghy.
Jesus, Bomber.
Kieran, sorry.
Oh, you're quickly
I was lucky to get one, Bomber. You could at least remember it from me.
It wouldn't come out of my mouth, wouldn't.
Yeah, well, that's embarrassing, Kieran. There you go. It was all for nothing. Bomber doesn't even remember.
Heartbroken. That's the ultimate insult now I've gotten.
I asked you to name a Kerry man on the team of the millennium. Who did you name in the end, actually? Sorry, Bomber.
Jacko or Spillane or I'd name Jacko.
Oh, jeez, I don't think Jacko made it. He's not on it. He didn't make it.
Sure, yeah, it lost its credibility when they didn't have Jacko on it. That's
well, you didn't make it, so I had to put you down for a 0 there. And you did have Kerry beating Mayo in the All Ireland final in '97. So that's 3 out of 5, Bomber. So listen, we need some goals. We need some goals from you in round 2. But look, that's your speciality. So in this round, going for goal, like I said with Dr. Khan earlier, it's sudden death quality. So there's 5 questions, 30 seconds. You get 3 points per correct answer. But if you get one wrong along the way, then you're cut and finito. Make sense?
Absolutely.
All right, okay, right. Your time starts now. Name the only Kerry footballer to win 2 All-Stars in the 1990s, Bomber.
1990s. Gooch.
That's I'd say.
Gooch in the 90s. Well, sure, look, come on. He wasn't even born, was he?
Bomber tuned out after the 80s.
I used to follow the game at all then.
Oh, jeez. Morris Fitzgerald, Bomber.
Jesus, yeah, that's correct. Correct.
Right, okay. Well, look.
Joe, I believe that was rabbit in the headlights.
Well, look, I hate to break it to you. Earlier on, Dr. Con Murphy weighed in with a very impressive 10 points. Bomber, you're in here with 3.
Oh, sure. Hammered me. It's like me playing him in golf.
All right, there we are. Look, Look, the questions didn't suit you.
They didn't.
They didn't suit you, Mom.
No bother, lads.
Into sports.
20 yards out, Ursh to shoot. Dungeon! Oh, what a goal for Fabinho! Wow!
Then get into the all-new OTB Sports app.
I think when he apologises to me, I probably will say hello to him, yeah. No.
Videos, sports news, live scores, interviews.
If Fabregas is going to come up to me in the street and give me some of the mouth that he would have given me on a football pitch, what do you do? You get a slap?
Plus, exclusive content on the OTB Podcast Network. The biggest names in sports. Ready when you are. Search OTB Sports on your app store and download it now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow.
Right, let's mow. 2 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTB AM. You've just been watching, hopefully, Scoreboard Jungle. It's our brand new OTB GAA quiz. That was Owen, the Bomber Listens effort, which wasn't bad. If he could just have remembered Maurice Fitz, he would actually have stalked the leaderboard. But as it is, he's second behind Dr. Con. Keep an eye out for Noel O'Leary and Breed Stacks later on this week. Busy day coming up on OTB Sports Radio as well. Barry Ryan, author of The Ascent, History of Irish Cycling, that's at 1 o'clock. The Masters preview of Paul McGinley on this week's Golf Weekly from 1:30. State of the Union, Maggie Alfonsi, Ali Donnelly and Wendy Keenan talking about the women's game. Retro panel, Losing the Dressing Room. Eamon Fennell, Derval O'Rourke and Diarmuid Ling in for that one. Michael Conlon in the aftermath of the Rio Olympics and the robbery that he suffered in the ring. That's at 6 o'clock. And then at 7 o'clock tonight, live, John Giles, our Super Value Connacht Roadshow special, and Damien Delaney on Ireland against England. We'll be keeping a close eye on England 5, Ireland 0. That was the prediction a little bit earlier on. Right, and a reminder, of course, the 2020 GAA Football All-Ireland Senior Championships are underway. To celebrate Super Value as part of their Support Where You're From campaign, have given us some great prizes to give away. We want you to dig out your favourite, any old merchandise, a ticket stub, a photograph of you with your favourite player as a kid, whatever, an old jersey, whatever. make a little 20-second video explaining why it's important to us. Send it into 087 180 180. It doesn't even have to be yours. It can be somebody in the families, and you'll be in the draw. And the winning prize is 200 quid's worth of SuperValu vouchers for a SuperValu near you. Check out facebook.com/SuperValu Ireland to find out a bit more about SuperValu's Superfan series, which is a fly-on-the-wall peek inside the homes of dedicated supporters around the country. SuperValu, proud sponsors of the GAA Football All-Ireland Senior Championships, and our next roadshow, as I said, takes place on a little bit later on tonight. Now, I'm delighted to welcome our next guest, Nikki Daly, to the show. Irish hockey star, obviously. This is part of the AIG marking the 20x20, the conclusion of the AIG Show Your Skills competition. Nikki, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. The Show Your Skills competition was like a key pillar of the whole 20x20 movement, and the point of this was to highlight women and girls and the amazing skill level that they bring to the sports that they participate in. Having watched the whole 20x20 campaign, and as somebody who played multiple sports and is interested in multiple sports growing up, what's your perception of how the campaign has been received and how it's going to be received into the future? What kind of legacy do you think it's left for us?
Oh, I think it's been the foundation now for women in sport in this country, and I think they've provided a platform there. Everyone got behind it. Everyone understood what needed to be done around women's sport because of it. And I think now it's up to each and every one of us to kind of continue moving that movement forward. And I think it's been a fantastic campaign. Throughout the 2 years, I've been a huge supporter of it, both from my own personal, hockey and stuff, but also through Formula Female with women in motorsport. So, yeah, I think they've done a fantastic job, and it's just up to us now to keep driving that momentum forward.
Do you think it will have an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've seen the impact already just over the last 2 years. I know certainly it's, a lot of young girls that I've come across probably didn't know an awful lot about women in sport in all different sports. They might have only known maybe a couple in the sport that they're interested in, but I think 20x20 has opened up, a variety of different sports for young girls to see and to understand that, there's so many different sports out there for young girls. And that's what a platform like that does for you.
Before we talk about hockey, will you talk to us a little bit about Formula Female and what it is, how it's working?
Yeah, it's an initiative I set up about 2 years ago to try and open up the sport to young girls, to try and show them the different opportunities that are involved in motorsport and the different career opportunities that are involved. And since 2018, I've launched a Go Girls karting initiative, trying to introduce over 1,000 young girls between the ages of 13 and 16 to motorsport. And it's been fantastic, to see so many girls, the smiles on their faces when they get into a go-kart, or when they turn around and tell you that maths is fun, or building data loggers is actually something that they're interested in. It's amazing to see that opening up a sport like motorsport and the different opportunities can have such a positive impact on young people.
Because it's interesting, obviously most sports in Ireland, the most that we can aspire to be is elite amateurs. Obviously, if you play professional soccer, that's great. Maybe the cyclists earn some money. We'd Shane Ryan on a little bit earlier on. He's a professional swimmer, but he did also, in passing, say that when he was living here, he was broke. It's a very difficult life for a lot of people who reach elite sport. But motorsport, for the people who aren't just partaking in it, there is actual career opportunities in there that you mentioned. It's possible to work in your passion if you're into motorsport.
Yeah, absolutely. You see all the Formula One drivers, there's a team of people behind them. There's a team of people behind every racing team, and they're, very highly qualified people, engineers, mechanics, team managers, team owners, all that sort of stuff. So there's so many different elements involved in motorsport that it's great to be able to bring business, technology, engineering to get together with sport. So it's kind of unique in that sense, with the amount of disciplines it probably brings together with a sport. So yeah, there's so much opportunity out there, and it's just about raising the awareness of it and showing these young girls or boys even that these opportunities do exist, and a career in motorsport can be an option for them.
So you're an engineer, is that right?
Yeah, I studied mechanical engineering my undergrad, and then I went and studied a master's in motorsport engineering in the UK. So I've done a little bit of work with the racing team in the States. I worked with Juncos Racing, they're an Indy Lights team, as a data engineer there for them. So I got to, be involved with what it is to be a data engineer. I was the lead data engineer on one car. I was kind of thrown in the deep end, but yeah, it was a great experience. And it was sort of through that and my experience in college that made me realize that, not enough girls really know about this, and there wasn't that many girls either studying it or working in the sport. And it kind of became, the reason why I started the Formula Female Initiative was to, bring this sport to so many more girls and let them see that it's an option. And, since then I've already had a couple of girls come to me. One has already just started the same masters that I did in Cranfield this year. She had no previous experience of motorsport or any real kind of previous interest in it. But after seeing the Go Girls Initiative and coming to a couple of days working with us, she realised that this is something that she'd love to do. And she's in England now working with a racing team that we've helped get her involved with. And she's also doing her masters. So there you go, it's working.
What does the lead data engineer do in the specific role that you had? What were you doing day to day?
You're basically responsible for the data acquisition on the car. So, every racing car is fitted with a certain amount of sensors to track all the movements of the car. And so you're responsible for making sure that the system is in place and it's fully functioning the way you want it to. But then you're also responsible for, downloading all the data that comes from all these sensors, analysing it, and trying to understand where you can make the biggest performance gains. So you work quite closely with the race engineer. He makes all the decisions, or she makes all the decisions around whatever changes they want to make, whether it's an aero change or, a suspension change or anything like that. You have a look at the data, see if it backs up maybe what the driver's saying, and then the race engineer make a decision, make a change, and see how the change affects the lap time.
How much of a challenge can it be? Oh, sorry. How much of a challenge can it be to sort of separate the data that you're seeing and the human element of it? I'm not sure what specific scenarios you would have encountered, but is there ever a conflict there between the performance or lack thereof of a driver, for example, and the performance or lack thereof from the actual machine itself?
Oh yeah, you can see a lot from the data, where maybe the driver's making errors or maybe where the car is not performing as you'd like. And you have a lot of historical data there that you can compare against each other. But yeah, you can tell a lot from what the driver's doing with the steering wheel, the steering trace, the brake trace, the throttle trace, how he uses the gears. That can tell you an awful lot about how he's driving. And then, if you're not seeing anything in that sticks out, quite obviously, then it's more likely going to be something to do with the car, or a little maybe combination of both. But yeah, you can tell a lot from the data, and also, you can tell a lot from a driver's feedback. If it's consistent and it's, they're well able to kind of articulate what they want to say, you generally think that, they know what's happening with the car. But if they're a little inconsistent with their feedback and they're not quite sure, you can maybe think that that's a little bit down to them and not being sure of how they're driving the car.
How big on data are you then personally when it comes to analysing hockey performances? Yeah, we do a lot. We do a lot of data analysis. I spoke about data. Video analysis would be a big one. We do have a guy, Mark is our video guy, and he does a lot of work around the stats as well. So it becomes a big part of the game. But I think not to get too carried away with the data, and it's the same in motorsport. You can analyze and overanalyze as much as you want, but usually if you kind of keep it simple, you'll find the answer. So we try and do the same with the hockey analysis when it comes to that. And generally you'll know anyway where the problem is or what you need to do. It's just trying to have a look at it in a little bit of detail and make it better from there. Because that's what they say. Any statistician, it's all about, making it digestible for a player on a team or whatever it may be. When your hockey stats person is giving you the concise information, are you like, no, actually give it to me in complicated terms. I want to drill down into everything you're seeing here?
No, I think I prefer it in a simple format. Like the team I worked with in the States was great for kind of teaching me around how to look at data and not to get too down into the nitty gritty of it, because you can kind of get lost down a wrong path very easily. And it is better to, at the end of the day, like it's like hockey and motor racing, like the stopwatch doesn't lie. And so you can generally tell where you're going wrong fairly quickly, and you can break down that bit of time that you're losing into so much detail. But the answer is probably fairly straightforward, and it's the same for hockey. Like you can understand maybe why you didn't score a goal, but you can break it down into all sorts of different technical elements. But generally you'll know why it didn't happen pretty easily.
In terms of actually managing the workload with being an elite hockey player and also finding the time to make sure that you're giving yourself the opportunity to develop your career, it's a constant conversation that we have with GAA players as well. You've obviously managed that very well over the last number of years.
Yeah, I think I went to the States in 2016, and that was due to the fact that we missed out in qualification for Rio. So I decided to take a bit of time out from the national team and allow myself to start to, develop the other side of my life, which was, engineering. And it kind of worked out quite well, because I got to, work a full racing season with a team over there, and it opened up my eyes. It opened up my world pretty much to a lot of different things, and it's given me kind of the experience to go on and do other things since then. But since kind of coming back from that, and I haven't really done any of the motorsport engineering since the end of 2018, and that was due to the World Cup and everything that came with that. And since we had the World Cup, we've kind of entered into this now semi-professional setup with the hockey team, where we just don't have the time to be able to give that attention to other parts of our careers. And I know a lot of the girls have had to, give up their careers or put them on hold, at least for the foreseeable future. And that's unfortunately what happens when you kind of enter into that setup, a sporting setup where, there's so much contact time with the hockey now, and it's full steam ahead for trying to, make an Olympics, that it kind of becomes your focus. And that's okay. I'm willing to do that. I can work for the rest of my life, as I was going to say many times.
Because it's such a clearly defined endpoint as well. Like Tokyo will be the end of this team. It'll break up in Jim Gavin has that famous thing where he shuts the doors after they win All Ireland and says this group is never going to be together, and everybody kind of goes, well, I'll be here next year. But actually somebody always leaves. And with the hockey team, because you've been on the road for quite a while, it's going to be a very different hockey team that emerges post-Tokyo, which I guess gives you a real sense of mission.
Yeah, I think, I certainly know for me it will be the end. This is, going into my 11th year now being on the national team, and like that, you give up so much, and it's time to kind of develop other areas of life. And if we were in a professional setup where, we could be full-time hockey players and live a normal life, shall we say, that would be great. But yeah, I think, it's inevitable that players will step away come the end of Tokyo. And but doesn't mean to say that, the team won't go on to keep achieving things. And I certainly think that they will. I think what we've kind of started now from the World Cup onwards is only going to kind of fuel the next couple of Irish international teams that come after. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time for Irish hockey.
Yeah, look, I think you're literally the embodiment of the can't see it, can't be it. The next generation of hockey teams, men's and women's, are going to have a huge amount to pay you guys as your legacy, and it's clear that you're having an impact on the sport of motor racing in Ireland too. Great to have you with us, Nikki. Thanks a million for joining us today.
No problem, thank you.
It's Nicci Daly, of course, an Irish hockey player with the Ireland team, and here as part of the AIG and the conclusion of the AIG Show Skills competition as part of 20 by 20. Check out AIG's Twitter page to see some of the 3,000 spectacular entries that they received over the course of the competition. Here's Padraig Harrington talking with Adrian last night about tackling Augusta National. We'll speak with Joe Molloy next.
I find the golf course very difficult. I find it very intimidating. I don't think that sometimes comes across. It actually is the ultimate golf course. They have a lot of control over us, but essentially, if you get yourself in contention, you still have to keep making birdies, even though there's potential of making double bogeys. So there's a lot of pressure to keep going. It's, you know, a US Open or an Open or things. Once you get yourself in the lead, you're kind of hanging in there a lot of the time. You're just, you know, you can play into the middle of the greens, or you can get up and down, and that's good enough. But in the Masters, you could have a one-shot lead with 9 holes to play, and you have to shoot 3 under par on that back 9 to win. So I found it a stressful golf course. A lot of, it's a lot of big shots, a lot of intimidating shots.
Right, that's really interesting from Padraig Harrington in conversation with Adrian Barry last night. A reminder, OTBAM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Joe Molloy, good morning to you.
Morning, gents. How are we doing?
I'm a bit surprised to hear Harrington talk about the course being intimidated, particularly because you think that, I don't know there's anything in life that I would have said Padraig Harrington was intimidated by.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, yeah. I suppose he's just so honest about these things, isn't he? It's funny, I was listening to Jeff Ogilvy, the Australian golfer, won the US Open back in 2006. He did a podcast, The Fried Egg, and it's as close to you and I will ever get to playing Augusta. It's about an hour and a half long, and he goes through the 18 holes shot by shot. And he made some great points in it. For instance, maybe it ties in with Harrington's point. He said Augusta will give you pars all day. If you're at that level, if you're a professional golfer and you want to just make par on a hole, you can make par on most holes. Obviously, a few difficult ones thrown in. It's when you go for birdie that disaster lurks. So for instance, he said the 13th, the hole that we all know. If you want to hit a safe tee shot, as in don't take on the trees down the left-hand side to get the better lie on the fairway, if you want to flare it out right, knock it further down right, and chip onto the green, that's the easiest 5 in a professional's life. Unfortunately, you know, in a tournament, everyone's going to go for that green in 2. So you have to potentially take on the trees down the left to get the flattest part of the lie on the fairway, and then you have to go over water, and your hands are shaking and you're a bit nervous. And so suddenly, that's maybe where intimidation comes into it. And he was just fascinating as well on the intricacies of the course, which, again, having not played it, we probably can't appreciate. So take a hole that none of us can picture, the 14th. You know, it's just one of those slightly forgetful holes on the back 9. He was saying, for instance, the green on 14 slopes massively left to right. It's not basically on the side of a hill, left to right, all the way down on that green. When you're back on the fairway, generally speaking, unless you've hit a really, really good tee shot, the majority of that fairway, the ball is below your feet. And then without getting too technical at all, even your, rank and file golfer will know, ball below your feet, it's very hard to draw the ball. And what you want to do into that green is draw the ball in. So a lot of these golfers are going in left to right spin, hits that left to right green. On a certain day, it can, spin off further away from the hole than you want. And that's not something you or I are probably thinking about when we're watching the 14th, as we're into our second pack of Doritos on a Sunday. But they are the intricacies that are all over this golf course. One other example, because this will hit people when they're watching it. The 12th. So he was making the point, again, this is, 150-yard par 3, myself or yourself on a good day might fancy it. For the right-hander, your 2 misses. So if you go left, generally the ball goes long. As a right-hander, you tend to pull the ball. Left and long on that hole is bad, really, really bad. You're in the bank and the trees, and it's really hard to get up and down. Equally, if you miss right as a right-hander, you tend to go short. Jordan Spieth will tell you from a couple of years ago, short on that hole is dead. That's water. And then you have to go over the water again. So suddenly that par 3, which looked innocuous enough, you're now looking at it saying, well, if I miss it left, I'm in really big trouble because I'll go long into that stuff. If I miss it short right, I'm into that water. That's really not good. I think that's probably where the intimidation comes in, not to mention the greens and all the other good stuff.
What's going to happen?
Well, I don't know. If that's what I'm here for, I don't have a clue. It's so open, isn't it?
What do you want to happen? What would be the best thing, the most exciting thing to happen in golf at the moment? It's Rory winning, isn't it? In a way, because it catapults him back into that rivalry and means that he's going to be around for the next couple of years. It's a recovery, because that's a comeback story at this point. We're in that territory, I think.
Yes, we are. I mean, I would say number one for me would be Tiger winning. As objectionable a human being as he is in many ways, last year was just amazing to watch him win. It was just phenomenal. And we're into the last, we really are now. I mean, Tiger's not going to win. That much we can probably say with certainty. He's behind in every single category going.
I know, but wasn't it the same last year?
No, there was great form last year. There was great form, genuinely. Yeah. There was a body of work last year, and he had won a tournament late in 2018 and played beautiful golf. So there was a body of work there. There were mumblings. I mean, it was still a comeback story. He hadn't, he wasn't going to, and he had contended at Carnoustie against Molinari the year before. So he had a really good 8-9 months, and there was a sense back at Augusta, institutional memory, he could do something. None of those signs are here. We're now just going on sheer hope and, to a degree, his history at Augusta. So Woods winning would be phenomenal. Three stories. Okay, Shane Lowry would be really cool from an Irish point of view. He hasn't played the course well previously by his own admission. So that would be a great story. It's Rory or it's Bryson for me as the two big stories. Rory, for obvious enough reasons, it would be a comeback story. It would be the Grand Slam. And I do think on this island we're underestimating that slightly. So McGinley, Rory may...
McGinley talking to you. Again? McGinley talking to you.
Yeah.
He was listing off people who'd done it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's so select. And you could list off the people who haven't done it, and that even puts it into sharper focus. So you're literally talking, I mean, it's such a small list I can remember it. It's Saracen, it's Hogan, it is Player, it's Nicholas, it's Woods. That's it. So Arnold Palmer, no. Tom Watson, no. Phil Mickelson, no. He's been desperately close so many times, US Open. So if Rory were to, we were thinking when he came on the scene, he could win double-figure majors, That feels less likely now, you must say. But if Rory wins the Grand Slam, which would be his 5th major, mic drops, walks off the stage, retires, happy, he is great. I mean, he's truly great. He's a legend of the game. And we probably yes. we need to get our heads around this. We will never produce a potential Grand Slam winner from this island in our lifetimes again. This is it. When he's gone, it's a bit like Roy Keane at Manchester United. You think you'll always have that. You won't. So the fact that we're able to talk pre-Masters about a young fella from up the road winning the Grand Slam is just, it'll be a phenomenal story.
This headlines show that Butch Harmon is revealing his work with Rory over the last couple of weeks. Is this something that should give people who've got money in Rory McIlroy great hope, or should it have them with their head in their hands thinking, what is Butch Harmon going to do, or what is Rory McIlroy turned to now, and what can he possibly bring at this stage?
Great hope. Huge hope. Right. Huge hope. I got a few texts from fellow golfing nerds last night saying, this is kind of promising. For two reasons. One, Butch is still probably the best coach in the world, maybe one or two others in that conversation. Phenomenal eye for the game, phenomenal eye for quick fixes and sorting a player out pretty quickly. And they've sorted, they're confident they've worked on one or two things in his downswing, which will eliminate some big misses. And secondly, he will imbue McIlroy with a sense of confidence. Any player who goes to Butch in that honeymoon period feels good about life. There are there's stories about Butch on the range with Phil Mickelson, and he's chatting to different people, and he's supposed to be watching Phil, and Phil hits a shot and turns around, and Butch hadn't seen the shot, and Phil says, that one felt good, how was that one? And Butch said, that's the best one you've hit all day. So there's a bit of that to golf. There just is. We could all play bad and terribly, and you feel good, you play good. Here's the so look, McIlroy has the ability to play this course. 11 appearances now. He's only missed the cut once. 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s. 21st last year wasn't so good, but 5th the year before. Went out in the final group with Patrick Reed. Here's I'm going to tie two things here together for McIlroy. We take the Masters winners last 10 years. So that's 720 rounds of golf over the last 10 years of winners. In those 720 rounds of golf, there has been one double bogey. Now, McIlroy is throwing in too many mistakes at the moment. In his most recent tournament, McIlroy had a record number of birdies for him. He had 29 birdies. Now, if I said to you at the start of the week, McIlroy is going to have a record number of birdies in this tournament, you would not expect him to finish 17th which is where he finished, because he's making mistakes. And as that stat on double bogeys shows, he can't make these mistakes that he is throwing in. Now, are they concentration? Are they something in his soul is not firing? Is his attention elsewhere? Is it just pure rank and file technical issues? I don't know. Probably a combination of them all. But he's really got to cut that out. I mean, I like, you're asking what's a great thing to happen. If I tune in today a bit late and he's on the 7th hole and I see 2 double bogeys in there, you know, he'll reverse into a top 10 finish on Sunday. But you know what I mean? He has to kind of stop doing that. The issue with his game, as well as the mistakes, the putting, Harrington was really good in that with Adrian last night, that he's just going to have to be patient with his putting and hope that comes good. And he is a streaky putter. He can putt well sometimes. Now, increasingly, he needs to do it a bit more. The biggest issue, Faldo has highlighted it. We touched on it with McGinley. McIlroy's approach play is the issue. So McIlroy snapped a club, for people who didn't see this, a couple of weeks ago in frustration. He missed a green from 138 odd yards, missed the green, and this has been a trend in his game for the last couple of months, and he snapped his club. And you don't snap your club the first time you make a mistake. That's an accumulation of frustration, a sign he's been working in this and it's not responding to the work. So for instance, pre-lockdown, when he was flying, he was number 3 in strokes gained with an iron in his hand. He's now 60th. That's inexplicable. I don't know why that's happened. There is a disparity. Sometimes he can just fly the ball over the green and look around and wonder and say, what happened? Yeah, miss a green. All the stats say, I don't know. All the stats say strokes gained approach to the green the last 5 years. You basically have to be 1 or 2 in Augusta to win. Tiger was number 1 last year. McGinley mentioned having dinner with Bernhard Langer 20 years ago. And Langer had such an instinct for the game. You know, he got things. And not least at Augusta. And everybody thought Augusta was all about your putting or, you know, the chipping, the short game. And Langer said, no, it's all about the second shot. And as McGinley said to us during the week, he's been proven so right statistically years later. Yeah.
He was ahead of his time. Joe, we've got to go. The Golf Weekly is live today.
We did it on Tuesday. We went big on Tuesday. But we're going to do a few little live pods during the weekend.
Very good. I'm looking forward to it. You can hear it on OTB Sports Radio from 1:30 this afternoon. Thanks to Joe for joining us this morning. We've got to stay tuned because coming up we have Paul McShane in conversation with Adrian from last night's show. Enjoy.
I always said in the past that I would always let Ireland retire me. So I've never ever shut the door on Ireland. But you know, I think it's pretty much, you know, just about shut now. But I'd never actually officially retire. So yeah, I'd you know, if I ever got the call up again, I'd jump at it because, you know, I've always been committed to the country over the years, and I've always loved playing for the country. So I'd never fully close that door.
Does that I know when we last chatted, it was a conversation about knocking on Alex Ferguson's door to tell him you were available. Has there been, so that not closing the door, is that just a we'll wait and see, or is it like a dropping a cheeky text here or there, or letting people know that you're about?
No, I'm just going to play me football now. I'm going to try and enjoy the last few years and just let the natural process happen. I don't want to start, you know, ringing people's phones and stuff and wanting to call up. But, you know, I think it's, you know, it's the Irish team have moved on, and you know, I wish the lads all the best. But yeah, I'm never really going to come out and make a big retirement announcement. As I said, I'm always going to let Ireland retire me.
It was the one thing that I thought was slightly bizarre about David McGoldrick's retirement this week, and even more so almost in the absence of Aaron Connolly now, that, like, I mean, I don't know, none of us maybe know fully what's going on in the background, but why would you not just hang on? Like, there might be a job to be done.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to have an opinion on that, because you just don't know what's happening in people's lives. You don't know what's going on in the background with personal stuff and family. But I was quite surprised at it myself when I seen it on my phone. I thought the last 2 games, Didsy had really, I think he turned into the main man for me. He looked very dangerous in games and looked like things were going to happen through him. So I thought it was just a bit disappointing then for him to come out with his retirement. But as I said, you just don't know what's going on. You don't know how his body is on a day-to-day basis at the club, and it's a tough one. I think it's probably a tough one to take for fans as well. And as I said, it took me by surprise.
Yeah, that seemed to be a lot of the way the conversations were going. Like, he's 32, he's playing top level football, he's starting to score a couple of goals, and we don't have strikers, and that makes it all the more tragic almost in Irish fans' minds, I suppose. Your last cap, am I right? Was the 2-2 draw with Slovakia? Was that?
Yeah, that was my last cap. Yeah.
2016.
Yep.
Which I'm sure is part of the reason that you want to get back in at some point and not have that as your last memory almost.
No, it's that was a strange game. It's when I look back at my Irish career I've got my majority of my caps from 20 to 23. So I always wanted to get back in contention, and I felt as if I was in a very good place football wise for say 6 years. When you you come into your own as a centre back, because it's all about experience, and I felt in a good place, but I didn't really get the break that I wanted at that particular time. But I played the Slovakia game, and yeah, it wasn't great personally. So yeah, it was that's just the way football is. It never really, football careers don't really go to plan. It's very much a roller coaster of up and downs, and you've got to roll with the punches. But I've kept going throughout my whole career, and took the highs with the lows, and just cracked on. In football you just gotta keep going. Finish the race and stay in the fight as long as you can. And yeah, that game was unfortunately probably my last cap for the country. But I had plenty of club football left in me, and I'm still going, and hopefully I've got a couple of more years playing.
33 caps is incredible and unfathomable, and in the tiny percentage of footballers who ever reach that milestone. Is it enough for you, or what's your sense, not being retired but looking back on it now as an achievement?
I would have liked to have got to 100, to be honest, but it didn't quite plan out like that. I made my debut at 20 years of age, which is relatively young. So yeah, I would have liked to have played every game till I was 35, but it wasn't to be. So I've got to look back on my Irish career with fond memories. I loved playing for Ireland. I played in the old Lansdowne Road, which was a great experience. I've played in Croke Park. I've played in the Aviva. I've played under numerous managers and learned loads off them. So I do. You've got to look back, and I'll always have fond memories of playing for the country, even though it didn't probably finish how I'd like to. But you just you can't become too upset about things. So yeah, it's been a good ride.
When you said a bit earlier on about you just didn't get the break that you wanted, do you mean like in the international sense, or the club break that you desperately needed, or what? Yeah, what did you mean by that?
A bit of both, really. It was like I was playing in the Premier League, and I got promoted with Hull back to the Premier League. So I thought I was in a good place there, but I didn't seem to. The lads were playing okay with Ireland at the time, and I just felt as if I maybe should have got a bit of a crack at it, but yeah, it wasn't to be. And also when I was in the Premier League with Hull, there was times when I wasn't in the team, but I got back in the team and I played a lot of games for Hull in the Premier League. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I would have liked it. I'd say probably the best I felt was probably maybe between say 26 and now.
Really?
So when I look back, I wish I'd got my majority of caps towards the end of my 20s, but yeah, I got them at the start of my 20s, and that was my journey. So I learned an awful lot in that time. So yeah, it was it's good to look back on.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that most of your caps had come so young, and like as you say, that position that people generally tend to mature into it. Was there? I'm just trying to think I'm trying to think of who the manager is that you're hinting at that didn't give you the break.
No, Joe, I'm not saying that I didn't get a break. Like I got a big break at 20, and I played under Trapattoni, and there was times under Trapattoni where I was very frustrated because I felt as if I should have been playing, especially the year we got promoted back to the Premier League. I think it came to the stage where I had to have a few words with Trapp and Marco. I thought I'd done enough to start more games, but I didn't. And then when Martin took over, I did have an ankle injury. I was just recovering from an operation, but then when I got back fit, I felt in a decent place. But Martin seemed to be, he was loyal. He was very loyal to the lads that were in the initial squad for him. So it took me a while to actually get back into a squad, which was, I think I was 29, and I was on. It was just off the back of a season in the Premier League with Hull. So I'm not going to moan about not getting a break. I had plenty of breaks, but I would have liked to have a little bit more in that period where I was feeling probably the best that I'd felt.
Were the few words in the during the Euros campaign, the qualifying campaign?
No, it wasn't the Euros campaign. It was. The Euros campaign that was mental times, because obviously the whole 23-man squad was announced but wasn't official, and then I actually ended up getting called into it and then being in the 23-man squad. So, to be knocking on the door in that situation, I didn't think was right, but because I wasn't playing club level at the time, I'd gone through a bit of a difficult patch with Hull.
He brought you in for your versatility at the 11th hour, essentially, wasn't that it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. It was. It was interesting times.
What was that town in Italy?
What's that?
What was the name of that town in Italy?
The town in Italy
where you remember the training camp? You came in. They'd played one of the local teams.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the village. Don't remember it, but it was. It was. I look back and it was a great experience to experience a tournament. But unfortunately the results weren't great for us, but it was good because I'd sort of, when that 23-man squad got announced, I was very disappointed that I wasn't in it. But then I just cracked on with my summer. I didn't really think about it, because if I got myself too down about it, I would have lost the head. So then all of a sudden on the radio you could hear that there was a few injuries and stuff. So I was thinking I've got a bit of an outside chance here. And I actually finished that season with an injury myself. I had a hamstring, but I actually was going to see a physio because I just wanted to rehab my hamstring and get ready for anything that was going to come my way. I just wanted to be prepared for everything. So I rehabbed my hamstring without, nobody really knew that I was injured. So it was good that I done that, because when I got the call up, I made the most of it. And we played Bosnia in the Aviva, and I think that was, I think I had a decent game. So that definitely put the thought in the Traps and Marco's head.
Montecatini was the name of that town.
Right, yeah.
What was the when you say you were ringing them up? What I was asking was that in the qualification campaign for those Euros, or was that separate to that?
What, ringing who up?
Trapp.
No, I never rang Trapp. I would never ring him. It was when I had the words with him. I think it was after a game against Wales away. I saw after the game. I just had a few words just to say, it's. I think I deserve to be playing or whatever in the last few months and stuff with what's gone on, and it was it wasn't much of a fallout. It was a conversation that you have to have. I think as a player, if you're out of the team and you think you deserve to be playing, I think you do have to ask questions. You have to take that responsibility of yourself, and I know if I was a manager and a player was asking me, about starting, I'd go, yeah, start. And if you mess up, you'll be playing again.
Yeah.
But I was definitely trying to put myself back in the picture. I thought I'd do it through performances and stuff, but if that doesn't work, then I think you gotta have to have a few words. And I ended up doing that. But it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? I got on well with the Trap, and I was very grateful for his time with the country, because I thought he was brilliant for us at the start.
What did he say to you?
Hey, Paolo. No, he's it was, he's a passionate fella and stuff, and this was about 8 years ago now, so it was I don't really remember.
Would he welcome players coming to, because from the outside looking in, he seemed like somebody who was pretty, I don't know if set in his ways is necessarily the right way to put it, but had a fairly fixed viewpoint that he wouldn't be easily shifted off. Would he be the type of fella that, we've spoken before about you knocking on Alex Ferguson's door and you'd written your notes the night before to get your head straight about what you wanted to say? Was it a similar scenario here, or how did you go about it?
No, this was a bit more off the cuff. This one.
Yeah.
I didn't have my notepad out that time. It was towards the end of his tenure, Trap. So it was. I sort of felt as if I just, I had really nothing to lose, so I just sort of had a few words, after the game and stuff. But it wasn't anything too juicy for you. It was pretty straightforward words that happened in a changing room, on a probably weekly basis up and down the country. But it was it wasn't notepad stuff, and trying to predict answers. It was it was straightforward, just that in the moment.
Yeah. When you look at your list of clubs, Paul, United, West Brom, Brighton, Sunderland, Hull City, Palace, Reading, some monster clubs in there, and you're not far off your 35th birthday, I know now, and I'm not wanting to retire you before you mention that, but when you look back, and you look at those list of clubs, and you look at the Ireland achievements, do you look back and think, Jesus, what a career that was?
No, I don't really know, because I sort of just live in the moment at the minute. It's I'm just trying to play as long as I can.
Yeah.
And I want to finish my career on something. I want to try and achieve something more. One last thing, whether that's a promotion in the lower leagues, or a staying up even. I would like to be a part of something. So I've not really. When I suppose it's all said and done, I think I'll, might sit down and have a couple of pints with a few friends and look back and think I think I did all right, considering that initially my goal was to play for St. Joseph Boys in Sallynoggin. I've played some great clubs, and I've enjoyed me football. It's as I said, football is such a roller coaster, and you probably have a lot more downs than ups, but when it's up, it's fantastic. So I'll look back at those memories, and I'll definitely, I've had I'm lucky to have the career that I've had, and it's been good. But I'm just going to keep going for as long as I can. Yeah, I'm 35 in January. I'll reassess at the end of the season, see what the crack is. But I would like to keep going as long as I can, but I'll have to talk to the body at the end of the season and see what's going on.
Yeah, and certainly no harm in doing that. What to ask in a slightly different way, what would, your career has been exceptional, and that's you've lived the beyond, you've said, your dreams and beyond the dreams of most people who are growing up considering a life in professional sport. But what would the 17 or 18-year-old Paul McShane at Manchester United, who's being heaped praise upon by the likes of Alex Ferguson, has been spoken about in the terms that he did about you, what would a 17 or 18-year-old think about the career of Paul McShane now?
Well, back then, I wanted to play for Manchester United. I wanted to be in the first team of Manchester United and winning the Premier Leagues and winning Champions Leagues and stuff. But as I said before, football careers don't always go to plan.
Yeah.
And considering that, at United as well, as time went on, I was sort of considered not big enough to be a centre half, not quick enough to play at the top level, not particularly technical enough to play at the top level. But I ended up doing that, and that was. That was through sheer determination. That was through sheer wanting to actually do it and having the desire to work for it. So as I look back, you know, I'll definitely look back and think, you know, I've done all right in the end. But, you know, 17, 18, bright-eyed boy coming over from Ireland, and, you know, it's all sort of, you know, rosy. Yeah, I would have thought, like, you know, Manchester United, week in, week out, winning trophies. That would have been the ideal. And anything other than that would have probably deemed as a failure. But, you know, when you think about the amount of players out there and the competition in football, you know, it's a very small percentage that get to do that. But I played the Premier League, played international football, played in an FA Cup final, got promotions and stuff. So, yeah, I think I've done okay.
You've done exceptionally well, and as I said, lived out the dreams that very few people get to do. Do you think that in some ways like that, you mentioned about Joey's and then the going to United, like, it's you're going to one of arguably the biggest club on the planet, and it's such an unfair benchmark for the rest of your career. And, like, you know, is that something that you think, like, in hindsight, of course you're always going to go when the opportunity is there and you want to make success with it, but in hindsight, like, the benchmark is so high that everything else looks like a step down, whereas in actual fact, like, it's really an incredible achievement, incredible success, your career.
Yeah, well, I never really thought of it as a step down. I felt as if it was a step up moving away from Manchester United, just because at the time I'd gone on loan to Brighton, and I'd played over 40 games at 19 and 20. Ended up getting Player of the Year there. So to go back to Manchester United, and if I wasn't going to be with the first team every day, I probably would have been playing with the reserves and stuff. And I knew I needed to crack on. I needed to strike while the iron was hot. And I was, you know, I wanted to start my senior career. So yeah, I made the decision to leave Manchester United. And I didn't see that as a step down. I felt as if it was, at the time, definitely a step up. Just with the way things were going at United, there was great competition there. You know, I wasn't going to play in the first team straight away. There was Rio, Vidic, you know, Shazy, Brownie, so it's, and then, like, around my age there was, you know, Gerard Piqué, Johnny Evans, Ryan Shawcross. So the competition was really, really strong, and you know, I thought to crack on with my career, I needed to leave and you know, find my way in the senior game, and you know, I cut the rope myself from Manchester United, and I didn't look back. I didn't look back at United. Sometimes I'd actually, you know, try and forget that I was actually there, just because I just wanted to, you know, totally focus on now making a career for myself.
Wow, that's mad.
Yeah, it's only in the last few years probably that I've actually, you know, really sort of, you know, spoke about United and spoke about actually the great time that I actually had there, because, you know, I didn't want to leave, but, you know, I had to from my own career and stuff. So yeah, it's just when you get older and you look back, you know, you do a lot of stupid things when you're younger, and you think a lot of stupid things. But yeah, at the time I just wanted to cut ties with United and yeah, just crack on with forcing a career for myself.
Yeah, and as I said, it's been an incredible career, and you know, as you said, and I'm repeating, you're not done yet, and there's more ahead, and you're at League One Rochdale at the minute. You're injured at the minute, is that right? Yeah, I'm injured at the minute. Yeah. What's wrong with you?
I've got a groin. I've never had a groin injury before. I think I'm ticking off all the muscles that I haven't injured at the minute. So this is like, yeah, pectineus muscle. I think I should be a physio when I'm finished. I know all the muscles and know all the rehab and that. But yeah, so it's a pectineus muscle in the groin. Basically, we're passing it too much at Rochdale, I think, and I've just tweaked it. It's annoying because it's only a 4-week job, and I'm back training. I'm back training now, but we don't have a game for another 10 days or so. But you know, I'm still dying to get back. I still love competing every weekend. Yeah, so I don't know if that will ever die, but I'll keep going as long as I can. And you know, other than picking up the odd injury, I feel pretty fit myself, and you know, I do everything I can to be prepared for games and training. And yeah, you know, I'm not sort of taking my foot off the gas and getting fat. I'm staying fit, and I love getting ready for games.
Yeah, you might be knocking on Brian Barry Murphy's door shortly and saying, "Listen, I've got no pad out here. I've been giving this some thought. Put me in, coach."
Yeah, no, I don't. I think the notepad. Well, the notepad hasn't retired yet. Still take a few notes if I have to have a chat with somebody. But yeah, no, I wouldn't do that to Brian. Brian's been fantastic. He's a good forward thinking manager, and he's quite a modern day manager. And it's been enjoyable. It's been a decent project at Rochdale, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Just we need to start turning good performances into wins, but hopefully that will come.
Yeah, he's finding his feet. Obviously, as a manager, just that's his first gig. What do you mean he's forward thinking and progressive?
Just the way we're playing. A lot of tactics going on within the game. A lot of rotations in possession. Defensively, we're well set up, and it's he's quite open as well. Opens the floor a lot to players, and he's open-minded around the training ground. It's not really it's not really an old school sort of dictatorship. It's quite open and a relaxed atmosphere to play in. But he's very, very. He's got a lot of intelligence in the game, and he's got some good coaches around him. And it's at times when we're on it, we play some really, really good stuff, and it's enjoyable when it all clicks.
I know you're doing stuff like trying not to say no to anything at the minute, and doing mad stuff like reading your star signs as to how your future is going to go. Are you chipping in around the training ground with all that bank of knowledge over the years, or is that something that you're leaning towards, or no?
Yeah, well, I've done me A and B license with the FAI, and I'm trying to keep my eye in with the coaching, but it's tough now with COVID. It's hard to get down to the academy. But I definitely have one eye on that. But it's I just trying to keep everything open at the minute. Coaching would definitely interest me. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I think yes. Sometimes I think no. I always look at even managers in the past, and I look at Brian now and think what would I do if I was in that situation? And a manager, it's a tough gig, like it really is. I think you've got to be 24/7, and yeah, I don't know. With I've got a little one now, and with all these interviews that I'm doing now on the circuit, the missus is going mad. I'm getting away with murder at the minute, but so if manager's 24/7, it can be. Don't know. I really don't know, but I'd love to give it a bash. I think I probably will go down that road. But yeah, I need to start getting back into getting a few sessions of coaching under my belt and see where it takes me.
What speaking of progressive managers, and I was interested to hear you say that you've done your groin because you're playing a bit too much football. I don't know how that would work in Stephen Kenny's setup at the minute. What have you made of the few games he's been in charge in terms of the advancement of style of that Ireland team?
Yeah, I think it's okay. It's obviously the results haven't been great, but I think with what we've wanted as a country, a lot of the fans wanted to see more possession-based stuff and more easy on the ice stuff. So I think to change a philosophy and to change a culture of playing, I think you have to sacrifice a few results. So Steve, I think the last couple of performances have been decent, but we just couldn't seem to put the ball in the back of the net. So I'm really interested to see how the next few games go and see how he can really stamp his philosophy on the team. Yeah. But I think we've got definitely got to give him time. Got to give time for the players to adjust. So I'm looking forward now to see how we get on tomorrow night and to see the up and coming games.
Yeah, interesting times ahead. We need to say we've had lots of love flowing in for you. A couple that I wanted to bring your way that we picked up on Twitter here in the last few minutes. One of them was about something I know that we've spoken to you about before. This one's from Cian, who says that your family's connected with Dublin hurling, and that Sean McShane, who's your dad, and the brothers were known to be phenomenal Raheny and Dublin hurlers, and we've spoken to you about that before. So that's in from Cian there, and right and proper to bring it up. And another one here that I'm not so sure is right and proper to bring up, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'll probably not maybe go into all the details here, but from Darren O'Dea, who you might be familiar with, who wants to know if we can ask you about the time that you jumped through the front room window and we tracked him down into a field where he was eating something that he shouldn't have been. Is that ringing? He says you were eating raw meat, which might ring a bell or two, I don't know.
What? Is he all right, is he?
Might let...
So you tracked me down in the field trying to eat
He's saying the time that you jumped through the front room window and...
that's Father Ted. That's Henry Sellers.
Henry Sellers.
That's Henry Sellers. Let him go. Let him go. I knew it'd be something Father Ted if it was Darren. Yeah, we're big Father Ted fans.
Listen, why wouldn't you be? I think that...
as Cian said on that as well, me dad and me uncle, I just love... I have the golf day every year, well, up to last year. And I love when the Raheny boys come and a couple of the Alphas tell a few stories about me dad and me uncle. Crackers, like, you know, if it was done in today's game, you'd be arrested, boys. So I love the stories, and I love the Raheny lads coming down to play.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow.